stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. The Jedi. They're real.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
Hi, I'm your friend Claude here with cousin Adam, and this is a special episode of WAMCast. Here we are in the same room to talk solely about our initial thoughts and reactions to seeing Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
Yes, we are, sir. Just before we talk about this discussion is going to have spoilers in it. We're probably going to talk about the plot in
Yeah,
detail.
about that. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah, so if you have not seen it yet, a loyal listener, then I would suggest skipping this till you see it.
Yeah, come back when you watch it and then see if you agree with us, or disagree, or want to throw acid on our faces for saying the things we're about to say.
Hey, whatever you got to do. I would prefer not to have acid thrown in my face, though.
Yeah, if you can avoid it.
Yeah, if you can avoid that, that'd be great. Or slice me up with your lightsaber. I don't know. That happened in the movie, just so you know. Someone got sliced up pretty fucking good. So I guess, like, the first thing, like, what is your... Because when we talk about this, I know I'm going to have, like, a general reaction to it. And then I'm probably going to break down, like, what I didn't like, what I did like, things like that. What is your initial overall, like, feeling? Like, are you relieved? Was it good? Was it just kind of good? Did you not like it? I mean, I didn't get the impression that you didn't like it, but...
I'll say two things. One, more good than bad.
Okay.
Two, that being said, I think I'm leaning right now at a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5 out of 10.
Maybe a 7.
Maybe a 7. I would probably give it about an 8 right now. I think we have to watch it a few more times, too, just to get it. But this is just our initial thought. I think my initial feeling, or like my overall general feeling, is like, okay, it's been somewhat redeemed based on the horribleness of the prequels. I think this is like what the direction a movie needs to go in to be Star Wars. It's not without its flaws, definitely not. And I don't think it still can compare to the original trilogy. But I think it, like you said, it's more good than bad. And I feel better about seeing, like, I'm not disappointed. I'm not coming out like, I am disappointed about a couple of things, which we'll get to. Major plot spoiler. Yeah. I've made a note to everybody that I'm way disappointed with this part of the plot, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It's about Luke Skywalker. But let me first say, first spoiler alert, is it does not appear that Luke Skywalker's bad. It looks like he's just really sad. There's some. He feels really bad about. I probably shouldn't slap the table. Noises. I'm not used to doing it in person. Like in a recording studio where I can't make any noise. Table. Drinking some beers. So yeah, he doesn't appear to be bad. So we're not going to quit Star Wars. So that's good. I think.
Yeah, for the time being.
Yeah, for the time being. There's 2 movies left, so who knows?
Yeah, but I think in terms of real world chronology, this definitely helps steer the ship in the other direction from the last Star Wars movie that was released in a theater, or a set of them. Which obviously is no accident. I mean, there was no way anybody was gonna make like a second prequel trilogy after what happened the first time. Yeah. Obviously George Lucas was kind of left out of the process for a reason. Yeah. But I think most of my issues with this movie are kind of issues that are common to just modern movie making in general. Yeah. I don't know if we really... There's no real format to this. We didn't really talk about it too much beforehand, so I guess I'll just start by saying what I didn't like. Yeah. And whatever.
Whatever you want, man.
Mainly, right off the bat... Well, I guess I can't say right off the bat, but the first once I kind of calmed down and like, you know, stopped being consumed by the fact that, you know, this huge event was here and started being able to think about it. My first real thing that I started noticing was the pacing, the editing. Like, I see it in a lot of movies. It was actually one of my issues with seeing Creed last week.
Yeah.
Movies now are just not allowed, even though this is a long movie, like the editing of it is just not like, I feel like it's rushed, it's forced. Like, I feel like it doesn't give you time for scenes to build, time, I guess breathing room is what they call it.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know. I think it relied a lot on the fact that we knew, you know, all the original trilogy characters that they brought back. We already know them, so I guess maybe they felt they didn't really have to do much to like reconnect us to that or whatever. But that was probably my first thing that I noticed.
Yeah, I agree with the editing part. It almost seemed to me like it was just like it was either like it went on too long or it didn't go on long enough. So I think it was like a mishmash of too soon or not enough, you know. And I think like you said, like, you know, because I'm thinking when I'm trying to compare this, I'm looking at the original trilogy. I'm like, well, what made that so good? You know, like, I mean, besides it being a great story and being like something you've never seen before, blah blah blah. You know, I think that those movies gave it time for, like you said, for people to develop or at least show a scene or show like or set up what's going on.
Right.
Like, I feel like some things they didn't talk about enough, and I think some things they kind of dragged out too much. So I mean, I guess I just basically repeated what I just said. But for instance, like let's like right off the bat, the title crawl. Okay, I thought that was pretty ballsy the way they started out. Almost, you know, they're basically straight up like, Luke Skywalker's not motherfucking here, like he's gone. But they said something about in the ashes of the Empire have risen the First Order, and it says that the Republic has basically backed, I think it said, like a resistance. So it's like almost like the resistance is separate to the Republic. So, and they even make mentions of like the Republic, they don't have the Republic fleet there, so they can't do anything. So it's like, well, where the F is the Republic fleet then?
Right.
Are they just like, here's some money, go take care of this? Almost like, are we going to like backdoor politics already? I don't know. I mean, I don't want like a huge political movie. I don't want the whole effing thing, you know, drawn out and shown to me, but like maybe a little bit more background on like, well, what's the situation of the government? I mean, you said Republic. So obviously there's some sort of, and even General Hux in his speech said, you know, down with the Senate, basically. So we know there's a Senate, there's a Republic. It's basically back to the way it should be, supposedly, like what the rebels fought for. But there's this horrible looming threat, and they're just like, here's some money and some X-Wings, see if you can take care of this, almost. And it's like, well, why? Like, maybe they'll get, you know, more into it as we go. And I guess like as a starter, I think they wanted like, okay, here's action. We'll explain a couple things, and I think that's where like the pacing got weird. Yeah. Was when they started to like explain stuff. You're like, oh, it kind of just took away from the action that was going on. Like you took a step back for a minute, you know, and like maybe
it wasn't like a natural flow, I guess.
Yeah, it almost. I mean, I kind of feel like when Rey discovered her calling, if you will, the lightsaber, like that was, I think, a good way to do it. I mean, like you said, it was almost like the equivalent of the cave in The Empire Strikes Back when she. So for some reason, so we'll get into that in a sec. Rey, Maz Kanata, the pirate, has Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. You don't even really get an explanation for that either. Like, why does she have it?
She kind of says, "I've had this for years."
Yeah, so someone must have found it. I kind of have a feeling that she's connected to Lando Calrissian in some way, because I almost feel like Finn is Lando's kid. They didn't say that, so that's not a spoiler alert. That's just me.
That's a theory.
Yeah, it's a conjecture. But
well, I mean, I guess it would kind of make sense in a way, considering that lightsaber was lost on Bespin and somehow recovered from the depths of whatever Cloud City thing it fell down.
Yeah, that little ball on the end that supposedly makes it from not tipping over. I don't know what that is.
But I think you mentioned something about, or maybe I wanted you, or I felt like you did, about certain questions not being answered. And I think like that's probably my number two thing that I was sort of, I guess it's not really a letdown, but I'm just kind of confused by it. Like there's a lot of speculation leading up to the movie being released, and a lot of like fan theories and questions about like, well, you see something in the trailer and be like, oh, well, if that's okay, then like, for example, like why does nobody know about Luke Skywalker or whatever, or like the Jedi, like why is it seen as such like an ancient, weird myth? Like Rey even says at one point, I thought Luke was a myth, which seemed to me kind of a callback to the way Obi-Wan Kenobi was viewed in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
But I just think that after seeing the movie, I still have a fair number of the questions I went into it with unanswered.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess maybe that was a little frustrating. Maybe it's the long game. You got to wait till the rest of them come out.
Yeah, God, this is terrible. Like, I'm thinking like, man, we waited a year for this movie. Now we got to wait 15, 16, whatever months for the next one.
Right.
And then after that, it's gonna be another 2 years. It's like, holy crap, this is like what living in the original. Cause see, I'm excited about it because okay, this was a good movie, not a great movie. It was a good movie. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so I'm not disappointed. And I want to see the next one now. Like, I'm not like, oh, that sucked. I wonder what the next one's going to suck ass. I mean, I remember, I'll even go flashback a little bit, in real life flashback. I remember, we anticipated The Phantom Menace. We saw it, and we both kind of left the theater like, what the hell did we just see? Right. But then I was in the Navy when 2 and 3 were released, and I remember I was out to sea, so I didn't see like any of like the episode 2 trailers or anything like that. And I got home, I mean, to the United States.
Right.
And we were, my roommate, he just mentioned like off the, like, matter of fact, like, oh, hey, I'm going to go see the new Star Wars movie. Do you want to go? I'm like, what do you mean new Star Wars movie? It's like, yeah, episode 2 came out while we were gone. And I was like, oh, it is 2002. I guess it did come out. Holy shit. I'm like, yeah, I'll go see it. And we watched that. I'm like, that was a piece of shit. So I wasn't anticipating anything at that point. I mean, okay, right. 1 sucked. 2 sucked. So I guess 1 was better than 2. Like, what the fuck is he going to do next, And I even remember I bought my tickets for opening night for episode 3 because everyone was kind of anticipating that because you wanted to see, okay, how does he finally, how does he finally fall? And how is he going to fuck it up? But I remember a buddy of mine had gone on like a midnight show because on the midnight I was on duty, so I had to stay on the boat. But on opening night I got off like a regular work day and I went that night. I remember he was in our divisional office and he said like, he's like, oh yeah, that's probably the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I watched it and I'm like, you obviously don't like Star Wars because you thought that was the greatest thing that was ever made. I'm like, the last 10 minutes were pretty cool, but that's about it. Right. Thanks. So anyway. Well, let's kind of like lay out the plot here a little bit. We'll talk about that, and then we'll go into like where we thought things were good or bad. Basically, if you've been following it, okay, there's Resistance, there's a First Order, or whatever. The movie and this is my first unanswered question. The movie starts off with nobody knows where Luke is, and they need him because apparently the First Order is getting like really powerful, and they need the Last Jedi Knight because apparently it seems that he had everything under control and whatnot, but now he's vanished, he's gone. So Leia sends Poe Dameron, who's like their best pilot, to go to Jakku to retrieve part of a map that'll, when they put it together, it'll give him the coordinates of whatever planet he's on or whatever. Right. Now the character that has this piece of map is Max von Sydow's character, who's been, like there's been secrecy around his character too. Apparently he is someone that was in the original trilogy.
Well, that's what I read, but I actually looked up on IMDb earlier, and they give his character name, and it's nothing I've ever heard before.
Yeah, but he acts like he knows the Solos and the Skywalkers, like he knows these people almost personally, and for some reason, Luke gave him the coordinates to where he is, and you're like, well, okay, but why? You don't know. So anyway, it comes out that the First Order finds out that they've sent this pilot to Jakku, and they want the map because they know that this guy has it. So that's where the movie starts out, is them attacking Jakku to get this piece of map, and Poe puts it in BB-8, and BB-8 flies away, and or not flies away, rolls away, and he gets picked up by Rey. And at the same time, Finn is obviously having some sort of clash of conscience. We looked up Max von Sydow. His character on IMDb is Lor San Tekka. Maybe that's like a secret name.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be like someone's real name or something. I don't know. Or maybe they abandoned, maybe they said that early on he was part of the original trilogy, but
yeah.
I mean, like you said, he references knowing the backstory of, the characters, the important characters.
Well, yeah, and even when he comes face to face with Kylo Ren when he gets on the planet, he's like, I know your family, you came from the light side, like, what are you doing? And Ren's like, you don't know me, sucker, kind of thing. But, so... I guess that's spoiler alert here. Kylo Ren is actually the child of Han and Leia. Comes out. His name's actually Ben Solo.
Yeah, which is, one of the more prevalent fan theories.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, one of the
not entirely big shock.
Yeah, that wasn't a huge shock. A lot of people speculated because they thought that they were going to take some of the expanded universe just to maybe bring like a little homage to it, and I think that is the homage because in the books, you know, they have Jedi twins actually, and one of them turns into an evil Sith Lord and basically almost destroys the galaxy again. And actually, Luke Skywalker's kid's name in the expanded universe was Ben Skywalker. He named him after Obi-Wan. And I think that's where they took the Ben from that and named him Ben Solo.
Has to be.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they both have really short names, I guess. Han Solo, Leia Solo. Well, I mean, who knows if it's Leia Solo.
It just seems like they said when Disney bought the Star Wars property or whatever wholesale, they announced that like the expanded universe stuff is just like
it's a legend.
Not official, it's in this Legends category. So like it's still here, but you know they're just patting us on the head, being like, "Nah, we're not using that. It's not actually. It doesn't exist."
Well, if you even go into the bookstores now and find them, they still sell those books, and they say Star Wars Legends right on top of it.
So but it seems to me that even though they said they weren't going to use it, it was almost like one of those old time telephone switchboards where they were like, "Oh, we're gonna take this piece and move it down.
Yeah.
We're gonna switch this one with this."
click.
Like, so it's all still there, but it's just like rearranged. I don't know.
Yeah. His Kylo Ren's real name is Ben Solo. So it's like, well, you know, where's Kylo Ren come from? And of course, we've gotten the backstory already that he's part of a group called the Knights of Ren, which is my other question. It's like, you still don't know who these people are.
Well, that was one of the things that, if you had a question about them going in, it's not really answered.
No, like you see basically the scene you saw in the trailer, and that was it, you know. So yeah, we pick up there. BB-8 gets away with the map and comes into the hands of Rey. At the same time, they take they capture Poe, but Finn, the stormtrooper, has like a little, you know, clash of conscience here. Like they're gonna kill the villagers. They have them basically lined up in a row, and they're like, he's just like, kill them all. And Finn can't do it. Like he's just like, what am I doing here? I can't shoot this. And his like buddy just died right before that because he got shot by, you know, whoever was shooting back at him, and he's just kind of like, what the hell am I fighting for? You? I mean, you don't really get a lot of. It kind of seems almost like that was rushed. But I mean, I guess like if you look at it, you don't really know what's leading up to this because he seems like he's already kind of like, you know, when he gets out of the ship, you can tell which stormtrooper's him because he's kind of focusing on him, and it's almost like he's stumbling around, like he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't want to do this, like you can tell he's having some sort of like inner demon conflict here. Yeah. So this kind of puts him over the edge, and he decides that he's going to rescue Poe after he gets tortured by Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren actually gets the information out of Poe because he's apparently not a Jedi or Force sensitive at this point. We'll tell you how we know that in a few minutes. But he helps them escape. They escape on the TIE fighter. When the crash lands on Jakku again, they get separated. So Finn thinks Poe's dead. But Finn comes across the village where Rey has basically rescued BB-8 from some other scavenger that she doesn't like, apparently. So she's in possession, and BB-8's kind of like, oh, you saved me. I want to be like your friend. Help me out here. And so somehow these people can understand droid speak. Yeah. I guess it's almost like a Morse code thing where they can understand what they're saying. I don't know.
It's like this kind of long-standing tradition, I guess. Well, see, like if in the originals, it's sort of like they cherry-picked who could understand R2-D2.
Yeah.
And like, I guess they kind of do the same thing here.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I always got the feeling that Luke could understand him, like when they were in the X-Wing, because it would read out. And he kind of would just be able to like sense how R2 was feeling, like based on his tones.
I don't know if it's inflection or whatever.
Yeah, like the inflection of his speaking. So he kind of got okay, so you're kind of scared right now, buddy. It's okay or whatever, you know. So for some reason she can understand the droid, but I guess like I just read something about that. Like they had a list of like the characters that could understand what the droids could say. I guess Poe Dameron's one of them. I mean, obviously like he's their crack pilot.
Well, like speaking of understanding, I guess non-human or English language characters, it seemed like a couple more people could understand Chewbacca in this one too. Yeah, like it's traditionally just been Han Solo, and in this one I feel like Rey seemed to pick it up kind of quick, and then I feel like there's a couple times when Finn did too. Yeah, I don't know if they were just generalizing their reactions or whatever based on like how emotional he sounded, but it seemed like they were like doing the Han Solo thing where he's like replying to them or whatever. So yeah, that's an interesting change.
Well, I think Finn might have caught on to like the same thing, like the tone. Yeah. Because he's kind of like, remember, he's like, you can understand this thing? He's like, yeah, and he can understand you too, or whatever. Right. Like, be very careful what you say around him. So yeah, that was kind of weird. Yeah, I don't understand why was like Chewbacca like freaking out, because like Chewbacca gets shot in the arm,
Yeah.
and Han's like take care of Chewie, and it's almost like he didn't want Finn to put a bandage on him or something, like stop it, and he was like fighting him off, and he was
It was
gonna bite his
awkward.
face off or something. That was weird, yeah.
It's like you have to tame the beast to earn his respect or something,
And that's the thing, like,
after that he's cool.
I feel like he doesn't even really like earn Finn's respect, but he likes Rey like right off the bat. Like he knows there's something about her that's like, oh, I can, like, it's almost like that's like his new life partner, I guess, because like that was always the backstory with Han, is that he saved Chewie, so Chewie pledged a life debt that he would never leave his side until he died or whatever. Okay, so what happens? They meet up on the village. The stormtroopers are looking for him again because they go back to the planet and they end up escaping, and this is where they run into the Millennium Falcon, which is kind of weird. But
sort of just there.
It was just there, and it was kind of an interesting reveal, I think, and it kind of gave homage to the hunk of junk thing. But yeah, it was really weird, like how it was just in the middle of this planet. So apparently, like a gangster had won it or stole it from another gangster who stole it from another gangster who stole it from Han Solo. So this gangster that happens to be on Jakku has the Millennium Falcon freaking sitting in his backyard, basically.
Sitting there, and even though they say it's like in disrepair, it's kind of in perfect shape to take off.
Yeah, well, I knew it was there as soon as when they were running for that one speeder or whatever, and he's like, what about that? Which is like, that's a piece of junk or whatever, and then the TIE fighter blew up the one they were going for. They're like, okay, let's take that one, and of course the camera pans over and there's the Millennium Falcon, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
So they get on board, and see, Uncle Matt said something I didn't notice when they got on the Millennium Falcon. They were looking for the parts to fix it. He pulled out the training remote.
Yeah,
I didn't even see that.
We talked about that. Yeah, he had it up real quick. It's like this weird little ball real quick.
Yeah, so that was another one of those little nods to the original, like the training remote that Luke and Obi-Wan used on the Millennium Falcon and New Hope was in there. I think I was looking in the background because I was seeing like what Rey was doing or something, and I guess I just missed it when he pulled it out or whatever. But excuse me. So there you go. They fix the Millennium Falcon, and of course they get pulled into some kind of tractor beam. And he's like, oh no, it's the First Order, and you can't really tell what kind of ship it is.
Yeah.
And this is where Han and Chewie make their dramatic entrance.
That was
Chewie
my, like, I knew that was coming moment.
Yeah, it had you.
I definitely caught that one.
Well, see, the weird thing was that from watching like the TV spots and the trailers and stuff, I thought that they meet up with Han and Chewie on Jakku, because it just seemed like that's the way when they were showing the stuff, like the Millennium Falcon flying around.
Right. Yeah.
I thought like for some reason Han and Chewie maybe were come looking for Poe, because like Leia was like, hey, can you see where Poe is? Like he hasn't come back yet or something.
Right.
I thought maybe they just like showed up, and then they did say before the movie came out that Han and Chewie said that to Chewie because they hadn't had the Millennium Falcon, so someone else had it for some reason. So I already knew that, but that's kind of weird. I thought they were going to meet up a lot sooner than what they did. But yeah, so basically Han and Chewie were looking for the Falcon too while they were doing their own little thing, because you get the impression that Han hasn't been part of the resistance or the government. Like it's almost like after their son turned bad, they didn't really know how to cope with it, and they had a rift in their relationship. I guess he went off and did his own thing, is what I'm thinking.
So he went back to what he knew or whatever. Which I guess was smuggling. So, but also it seemed like they were kind of using that as an excuse to look around for the Millennium Falcon. So,
yeah. Well, at some point they lose it, because remember I was telling you about that Aftermath book that takes place a few months after Return of the Jedi. Han and Chewie are still on the Falcon, and they had that little interlude where one of his old pirate or smuggler buddies is like, hey, we got an opening, we can take Kashyyyk. And apparently Han and Chewie are still working for the rebels at this point, and they're trying to find trade routes and supply routes and stuff like that. And I guess like this might be one of the events that causes a rift at first between him and Leia, is that he kind of goes off on his own to help Chewie free Kashyyyk or whatever. And but anyway, he did neither here nor there yet. So yeah, they get the Millennium Falcon. You want to take it from there? From what happened next?
Sort of like one of my things. It's not necessarily something I didn't like, but something that, like, I don't know. Maybe I didn't like the frequency of it, but like a little bit's cool, but a lot's too much. There's a lot of callbacks, a lot of like repeat moments to the original trilogy stuff. So it almost seemed like the stuff that took place once they pull him in with the tractor beam, and like I guess it's revealed they have some like volatile cargo, and then they're boarded by two like competing space pirate people who Han happens to be working for at the same time, I guess. Yeah. And of course, they shortchanged both of them.
Good old Han.
Yeah, nothing's changed there.
Yeah.
So. They start basically like coming in for the kill on each side, both of these pirate groups. And I think it was Rey like purposely set free the beast things they were carrying, and just kind of distract them and whatever. And maybe I'm crazy, but to me that felt like a little bit of this movie's version of like the being stuck in the garbage chute scene.
Yeah, with like a weird
the
beast
weird character with the tentacles, whatever. I mean, not too much, but it just kind of seemed like there was that like type of moment was replicated in this.
Yeah, it's almost like, before you go on, like it's almost like this was almost like a remake of the original, because there was a lot of those moments where it was like there was a version of something
on
we
remake. Yeah.
Well, even like in the end when the lightsaber gets stuck in the snow, I immediately thought of like the ice cave at Hoth and
it
like
almost
Luke
had
trying
like
to
the
pull
same
it out.
sound effects and everything.
And it was like the same lightsaber because it's the one he got before his hand got cut off. But I didn't, I think it would have been better if like they didn't show those like ridiculous looking beasts. Because
it took me out of it.
It would have been better, like when they were standing next to it and the thing was like tapping on the glass.
Right.
That would have been fine.
Right, exactly.
I think it would have been better if they just got like in an old school shootout, or maybe like Rey accidentally used her force powers, and that spoiler, she's very force sensitive in this movie. Or something like that. But I kind of felt like I could tell they used a lot of practical effects. Like you could tell like those were like ship models and not CGI sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes they were. But this was like one of those unnecessary uses of CGI, I think, with like these weird tentacle beasts that were, I mean, it's not like, they weren't like horrible.
It wasn't, prequel trilogy level or anything.
Yeah, it wasn't like those dumb fishes in the sea that they were driving away from in Phantom Menace, where like there was one fish bigger than the next fish, you know what I mean? Yeah. These were like volatile creatures, and of course, as soon as you get a Star Wars property, I think one of the first things I would do is make my own alien life form. Right. Like, what can I add to this? Because that's what it's been known for. I mean, right from that cantina scene in New Hope, it's like a plethora of these weird, crazy creatures, and that's what they did in this too. But I think that was just like, it would have been better if like they just kind of showed it, and then like maybe like the pirates got stuck on the ship after the Millennium Falcon escaped, and maybe they got out and like ate them instead of like being part of how they escaped or something. It was really weird.
Which was like a very choreographed, almost Scooby-Doo level, like chase scene around, like, there's doors opening and closing, and like the bad guys pop out of this one, and the good guys pop out of the other one, and then they both pop out of the same one and look at each other.
Yeah, what? Or like they're back to back creeping around, and they back into each other, like, oh, it was just you, woo, and then they get eaten or something,
I mean, it's a small nitpick, but it just because it was kind of publicized that J.J. Abrams was going out of his way to do, take as much of a traditional approach with the effects as possible. I think it stuck out that much more when it wasn't that. Yeah. So anyway, they of course, make it out of the hairy situation. Yep. I actually forget, so they got in the Millennium Falcon, that's right, they got in the Millennium Falcon and, hyperspaced off of the ship that they were using. Yeah, that was a little bit of a nitpick I had, too. Yeah. Was the use of hyperspace in this movie. It was kind of like... Yeah, they took some liberties with it. Yeah, they did. There was that part, they basically hit hyperspace right out of the docking bay, which, knocked the people back, which I would have thought would have, sucked them into, the space-time continuum and killed them or something. And just the way they depicted the ship flying through hyperspace was different. But right at the end too, we'll skip ahead a little bit. The Starkiller base has a shield on it that would stop a small ship from coming in or something at regular speed. So they basically hyperspace right to almost through the atmosphere into the surface of the planet and pull out just in time. And they basically crash the Millennium Falcon on this planet. And it's that's kind of weird. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the creativity of it. Yeah, it is it's a different spin on it, but I wasn't ready for it or something. I was just that's weird. Well, it's creative, but it's also kind of convenient. Mm-hmm. And then I thought it was a little kind of pointless in a way. Yeah. Where they penetrate the shields by going light speed or whatever. Yeah. Until the last minute. And of course they skid across the surface and then come to a stop just before coming over a cliff. But I'm thinking even if they fell off the cliff, it can fly.
Yeah, it's still like because Chewie basically gets in the Falcon and takes off with it later on. So it's not like it can't fly.
I kind of thought that myself. I was like, well, maybe it got damaged, and like we see it flying like right after this.
That's one of the little things I didn't like too. Not like I didn't necessarily not like it. I just like you said it was creative, but it was like I wasn't ready for it. Was when Rey was flying the Millennium Falcon off Jakku, she was doing some crazy shit with that thing. I mean, it was like
instantly
stop, start. Like she would like bank it just to the right angle so he didn't have to move the gun and he shot the. You know what I mean? It was like. I guess like you'd say, okay, I'm not saying she's a bad pilot. Like, how could she fly that? She's, she even says, I'm a pilot, I can do this. Yeah. But like, it was just weird. Some of the things you saw. Some of it was normal, flying around and
what it is it's all the footage basically that they used in the trailers for months. And like, I until seeing it tonight, I was fully believed that it was Han Solo doing all that. So it's kind of a surprise. Maybe it's like I don't know, they intended it to be that way, obviously, but it is a little bit like, and obviously I'm saying this with a wink and a nod a little bit because like the whole movie is kind of unrealistic, but it's a little unrealistic to have somebody who the backstory is less than murky at best. Honestly, they were given very little information. She was abandoned on this planet and it appears to just be like raising herself by herself. And like before she says I'm a pilot, I can do this, is it even mentioned or referenced that she has like an interest in flying or being a pilot? Or
not really. I think the only thing that you could kind of maybe weakly combine or like attach the two points to is that like she's scavenging and she knows what she's looking for.
And I see the mechanical aspect over there from seeing all these pieces and like obviously trading in the most valuable ones for her food or whatever. But it just seems like a bit of a leap to go like from like, oh my god, I don't know how to drive this thing, but whatever, and then to like to aerobatics better than Han Solo's ever pulled off. It reminds me of the official story of the plane that hit the Pentagon on September 11th, like doing this ridiculous fucking impossible to pull off by a master pilot maneuver at the last second.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's crazy.
I have a theory. I think, and we'll get into this a little bit more detail after we're done going through the plot. I think Rey is actually Luke Skywalker's daughter, or somehow is related to her, or he somehow knows her. Now, if she's related to the Skywalkers, it's actually, I'm going to use a point from the prequel trilogy. When young Anakin can do the pod race, and Qui-Gon Jinn's like, he can anticipate his moves before it even happens. Like he's very attuned to the Force. Like he doesn't know it, but that's why he has such good reflexes and why he's the only human that can do a pod race, because he's like some wicked powerful Force being that was obviously like immaculately conceived by midichlorians. Shit. So let's say for whatever reason Luke fathered a child, or this is someone from his blood. Maybe he didn't have relations with a woman. Maybe it's like they used his DNA to like clone a person. I don't know. That would be dumb, but I think it's Luke's daughter. And I think that he knows, but she doesn't know, because she has no idea who her parents are, because remember, she's abandoned on this planet when she's a kid. And Max von Sydow is obviously on the same planet, so he must be like looking after her like from afar. What's that remind you of? Obi-Wan looking after Luke, right? So I think she can pilot that well because she's naturally attuned to it. Like she has an affinity for like she has the reflexes, she knows what to do. And I think that's maybe why Chewie, like Han says, Chewie's taking a liking to you. I need another person. So I'm assuming Chewie's gonna be hanging around with Rey and Luke. And then let me stop you there for a second and continue with the plot. So they go. What were we saying? Okay, so they get in the thing.
Before you move on with the plot, let's quickly react to what you said.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not like. No, I said that. Now shut up.
I didn't even consider that when I saw the movie that she was possibly Luke's daughter. I actually just assumed that she's Kylo Ren's sister. That they were just taking the expanded universe thing wholesale, just renaming them and having them be twins, like the Jason and Jaina Solo thing from the expanded universe.
Maybe they're cousins.
It could be.
Yeah. They're probably in some way related, I think.
Well, the internet seems to agree that she's Luke's daughter, and that. I didn't even read seems. That. Well, I just when we got home, I quickly just wanted to see what everybody was saying about it, and that seems to be the consensus. It's just weird how that I just didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, there were instances that made it wasn't just that.
No,
there's
yeah,
other
yeah,
things
so.
that we can go over that when we
Yeah,
get
we'll
to
get to
them.
that,
Yeah.
but that's just my initial reaction.
Yeah. Well, everybody looks at it, they interpret it a different way. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is. You know.
The other popular theory about her abandonment is that Kylo Ren was actually the one who abandoned her. Apparently, he's supposed to be 10 years older than her. Which I don't know how people say this or know this, but that's what the internet is saying.
Yeah, Adam Driver
doesn't really work, really.
No, I mean, I don't
Based
think
on visuals.
I don't think he did a bad job. I don't think he did a great job, but I don't think he was terrible. But yeah, he's just too young looking.
In one way, he's perfectly cast. In another way, he's horribly miscast.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess put them together, and he's sort of all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. On with the plot.
Yeah. Okay, so they escape the ship with the beasts, right? And they go to see a new character, Maz Kanata, who is a pirate who knows Han from past things and
apparently smuggling adventures, which he mentions casually as if duh, we're going to see my old friend Maz Kanata. You know?
Someone that's never been mentioned before. But yeah, he said that she's been a pirate for 1,000 years or something, so she's an oldie. So she's been around through the ages of the Jedi, and then obviously through the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire and all that stuff. So she's seen it all, basically. So she's kind of like your whimsical character that knows everything about the galaxy and knows what things are. And she even says that she doesn't know how to use the Force, but she understands what it is and how people can use it. She doesn't have an affinity for it. I was surprised that they made her small in stature, like a little tiny alien, it's kind
of Yoda-esque.
Yeah, she is kind of Yoda-esque. I mean, obviously not Force, but has the wisdom. So it's there's your parallel, Right. So they go to this pirate. Why did they even go to her? Oh, because they need to get BB-8 back to the Resistance, because Finn is actually a defected First Order stormtrooper, but he lies to Rey about being in the Resistance because he's trying to get away from the First Order. So he thinks that she's going to help him if he says, yeah, I'm in the Resistance, totally. I know that droid, because Poe actually mentions he's looking for the droid and describes him to Finn, so he recognizes BB-8 when he sees him with Rey. But so they're basically trying to get BB-8 back to the Resistance. Of course, conveniently, they go into this bar, which is kind of your throwback to the cantina with all the crazy-looking aliens.
It struck me as a hybrid of the Jabba's Palace and the cantina.
Yeah, it was, because it was it wasn't just random spacefaring, smugglers or pilots. This was all pirates, and smugglers and stuff. So, but they weren't the bad sort. When Han walks in, they're all oh, that's Han Solo. I was thinking all of them had beef with him or something. But Maz was oh, hey Han, come on over,
Right. Which is also, I thought it was kind of interesting when they first go in, he sort of warns everybody that he says Maz Kanata is an acquired taste or whatever, but then she's super friendly and accommodating and helpful. So I was a little bit lost on that.
Yeah, she was a little bit. I didn't really get that. I thought that she was going to be gruff and only he could understand her. Yeah. Well, he even says, let me do the talking, and then he hardly does any talking, So this is a pretty pivotal point in the movie.
Right.
Because this is when it really starts getting kind of heated and stakes are high, I guess you could say. So they walk in and there's some random person sees BB-8 and contacts the First Order and says, yeah, I know where the droid is. But then at the same time, there's a droid in there that sees BB-8. It's tell the Resistance I found their droid. So basically, there's agents of each in this place, and they both call their respective sides at the same time. So, okay, everyone's on the way now. They're talking to Maz Kanata. This is the part in the voiceover where she says, I've seen your eyes before, kind of thing. But she was actually talking to Finn.
Yeah,
she was this is what made me think that he was related to Lando Calrissian, because he mentions that he was stolen as a baby from his parents, and he's basically bred to be a soldier. So this is the First Order's new twisted version of the stormtrooper. They're not just enlisted people. Oh, excuse me, I'm drinking beer. I'm burping like my motherfucker. And it stinks too. Sorry, we had meat.
Too.
You can probably cut that part out. What was I saying? Yeah, because the stormtroopers, you kind of get the sense are enlisted. They go through the academy. They're just kind of what are we doing? But these stormtroopers are bred to fight. They're trained from being. It's almost like they're a twisted version of Jedi. They train them from being a kid to being these killing machines, and so. And she says, I've seen your eyes before. So I'm kind of well, Han and Lando knew each other. So you could reasonably assume that Lando knows Maz Kanata also. Yeah. And they don't say anything about Lando in the movie.
No.
So, which is kind of weird.
Well, I mean, is it the elephant in the room that causes you to think that primarily? The fact that here's the only other black guy in Star
Well,
Wars?
no.
Or is that
I think
factor?
I didn't think that at first. Like when they casted John Boyega, I wasn't like, oh, he must be Lando's kid because he's black.
Right.
I didn't think that at all. What made me start thinking it was that's when the rumor mill started, and people were saying, well, could this be Lando Calrissian? Because they didn't say the excuse they used for that was was the fact that you don't know what his last name is. Right. So you think that this is some sort of way to keep it secret, but it turns out his name's Finn because like his designation was like what F18N or something like that or something.
FN2187.
Yeah, something like that. And
which actually turns out to be the number for Princess Leia's cell in the first movie.
Oh.
So it's like a hidden little inside joke.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Because when he rescues Poe in the beginning, Poe's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Well, my designation's FN whatever, and that's all I've been known by." He's like, "Oh, FN, huh? I'll call you Finn."
Right.
So Finn's not even really his name.
Right, it's just a nickname based on his serial number.
Yeah, basically, he's got a serial number because he's not a person. He's basically just like a cog in the machine, so to speak. So that made me think of that because like there was conjecture or like speculation that he was Lando's kid, which it would fit in the years thing or whatever.
It's possible.
And when she said, I've seen your eyes before, I'm almost like I almost kind of like was waiting for her to kind of like look sideways at Han, and Han was like, yeah, it's Lando's kid, but that didn't happen.
Right.
Basically, she said, you're the eyes of someone that's running away.
Yeah.
So Finn is like, oh, I'm done. I'm just going to work for these two guys and maybe fly out of here. And then, of course, at that point, Rey gets lost and whatever. Okay, so here's a really pivotal plot point. Rey is kind of just hanging out, and she kind of hears voices raised. So you want to explain what happens there?
Yeah. It was like... it sounded like a woman kind of suffering faintly in the distance.
Well, now, who could that have been?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? That's kind of weird. So, okay, continue.
I was sort of expecting it to be just like this weird, like creepy trap or something.
Yeah, like it was a trap.
Like she walks in on this like horrible monster making this fake woman sound or something.
Yeah,
but apparently, I was expecting a different movie.
Yeah, then she looked in the mirror and said Candyman 3 times, and all of a sudden Candyman was there.
Well, you don't know because out of nowhere you just start hearing this like faint like, woman sobbing or wailing or something in the distance. So she follows the sound down. Apparently there's like a dungeon area or something, which is also like the archives.
The archives of Maz Kanata.
So she goes down in the dark, creepy hallway, dungeon, staircase, all the above, to where the sound is coming from, and goes into this room, and it's coming from a box, I guess. So she opens the box, and it's Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, which was given to Luke and used by Luke until he lost it on Bespin.
Yep.
The first time he confronted Darth Vader. And so she is compelled to just kind of touch it, and I guess she like sort of turned it on, but I mean it made the sound, but it didn't really. It just triggered like almost like a Weapon X flashback type scene.
Yeah, it was like a force
montage.
Yeah, it was like a force vision, and she saw like some stuff that happened in the past or whatever.
It was like a montage of moments from like her past, like was some of it from like her future, like possible future?
I think they kind of foreshadowed the final fight on the Starkiller base. You know what we forgot to mention before this happened? Sorry, let me just interject. When that whole scene that you see in the trailer where Han's explaining to them like, oh, the Jedi, the dark side, they're all real, it's true or whatever. They quickly, so they're like, so Luke Skywalker was real? He's like, yeah, I knew Luke. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, where is he? And he mentions like, oh, well, he started training a new generation of Jedi Knights. And he said one of his students turned on him and killed all the other apprentices, and Luke blamed himself for it. And that's basically when he disappeared. So that was pretty pivotal because like you hear him say that, and then when she goes through her vision, you see you hear Luke yell like no, like he did when Vader told him he was his father. Like you hear that voice, and you see that scene where the mechanical hand kind of like he sets his hand on R2. Now that was a little bit different than what we saw in the trailer, I thought.
Well, yeah, I wanted to say like a lot of these trailer scenes that they put in were actually like part of like flashbacks or like dream sequences or whatever. They weren't even really like movie scenes.
And I thought it was a little bit of an alternate take too. Like it was a different.
Yeah, it did look a little different.
Because in the trailer, Luke just kind of like puts his hand on R2, like almost like, oh, you're my only friend now, R2.
Yeah.
It's just you and me, buddy. In this flashback, it's almost like he's in some kind of agony, and he's just like so like enraged or sad, and he just kind of like puts his hand on R2 because he needs to brace himself. Is what I got from that. Like I thought that was way different than what you saw. So in this flashback scene, she's seeing Luke reacting to the Knights of Ren basically killing his Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
So he must have like left for something and came back and found him dead, because she's in the middle of that rainy sequence where you see the Knights of Ren, with Kylo out there with his lightsaber and all of the other guys standing around him. And what you mentioned, it was part of her flashback too. What did we see?
Well, they showed like when she gets abandoned as a kid.
Yeah.
Her like screaming for them not to go or whatever. So we see a ship taking off, and like her as a little girl is basically the exact same outfit. Which, actually it is kind of cheesy and annoying, but also pretty helpful visually.
Yeah, so you know who it is. Right? There's no doubt.
No question.
And I'm assuming the guy that was holding her back too was probably Max von Sydow's character too, because he has to be like the protector. Because like if she got dropped off and he knows where Luke is, he's looking after. See, now this is what was my first kind of like maybe like I feel like because she was called to this lightsaber, she felt something in the Force,
right?
And when she touches it, she gets this crazy Force vision and flashback sequence and all this thing going on. So I kind of feel like she's drawn to it because of her lineage. This is Anakin's lightsaber that was Luke's lightsaber. Now, if she's a Skywalker, it makes sense that she would sense it.
Yeah, it feels like they purposely left it like open to several possible
opening to more.
It's frustrating, but also I guess an incentive to stay with it.
It's like you get some things answered, but then there's like a million. It's like double what more questions you have now. Because and that's what I'm assuming, because they're then they show her getting dropped off, and it's showing this horrible sequence of carnage. So I'm thinking like, well, maybe she's not related to Luke, maybe she was one of the pupils that was there that maybe survived and she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And I think Luke is the one that sends her to Jakku to hide her because of what just happened. And since Max von Sydow is there, and for some reason he has the other little piece of the map, and Luke trusts this guy that we don't know who he is still with where his location is, he must be like the overseer, so to speak. Like he knows Rey, he knows Luke, he's on Jakku with her, and I just reasonably assume that maybe Luke put her there, and maybe he put her there because it's his daughter, and maybe that's why she didn't die, because she might have been with him on doing something else and then when he was gone, they came to attack it, like, where's Luke? He's not here, damn it, and we'll just kill all the apprentices or whatever. So,
well, like I mentioned earlier, that was it felt to me as like this movie's equivalent of the scene in Empire Strikes Back where Luke goes down into the cave on Dagobah and
he
sees Vader and what his possible future could be or whatever.
Yeah.
Whether that was intentional or not, I guess we'll maybe never know, but that's just how it felt to me. Maybe I was looking for associations. But one of the most interesting things about this scene in particular is that, like I said, I came home and got on the internet to see kind of what was being said, and it was pointed out that I think right around the same time you hear Luke saying no or whatever, you hear Obi-Wan Kenobi say Rey, and it sounds just like Alec Guinness, which is crazy. Yeah. But apparently on Twitter it's been confirmed that it was Ewan McGregor's voice.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I don't know what that means necessarily.
We know that at this point, obviously, Obi-Wan's dead, but he has come back in the form of Force Ghost. Yeah. He's been able to maintain his identity basically after dying and enjoying the Force. He's and like we've talked about this before, Qui-Gon Jinn's actually the one that's responsible for figuring this out. And he communes with Yoda. Yoda teaches Obi-Wan how to do it, so that's why Yoda, Obi-Wan, all them show up as a Force Ghost. Right. I don't know why Anakin did, but it might just be because he is like the chosen one, and he was conceived by the Force, basically, is what it comes down to. So maybe he just already automatically knows how to do it because the Force made him into a person. But yeah, I mean, that very well could have been.
I don't know if it'll figure in any more than that, but that's super interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, because Obi-Wan's part, and Frank Oz is still alive. You could have Ghost Yoda come back if you wanted to, absolutely. Too. That would be pretty cool if you saw that in the second one. Like,
but what you said about her being possibly one of Luke's other students who he was trying to protect or whatever, that seems to be a popular theory too. But yeah, so
well, she's ready for some training. It looks like so.
Right.
Okay, so she has this vision, and it's really like whoa. When she snaps out of it, Maz Kanata's like, yeah, you found it. Like I've been holding that thing for however long.
Yeah.
Like you don't really know how she gets it.
Yeah, they don't
She
really tell you.
she doesn't explain it. Which is why I think she has a tie to Lando because like it ended up on Bespin, and I'm
Right.
assuming that even after he joined the rebellion, he probably had like ties there, and they actually do mention in that Aftermath book in an interlude that he's still kind of like the administrator, and the people there are trying to weed out like the Imperial supporters, on Bespin, and like yeah, we're working for Administrator Calrissian or whatever or something. So he's still involved with Bespin, so they very well could have found it, and
Right.
he had it, and that's how Maz Kanata got it. Maybe he was just like, hold on to this in your little dungeon safe or whatever, who knows. But yeah, that's just speculation. Like we don't know how she got it, but she basically is like, take this, Rey. Like you're meant for this. Like it's obviously calling to you. Take it. She refuses. And is like, no effing way. I'm not touching that thing again because she just
Right.
had like this crazy mind fuck basically. And she runs out of the palace and is all like distraught. And then that's when
Yes. Takes
well,
off
guess
her.
what? They attack and Finn's
Yeah.
kind of
By that point, the fucking First Order has shown up.
Yep. And Finn's kind of like, shit, here comes the First Order. And so he starts to kind of like, be like a defender, I guess, and starts fighting as well.
Right.
You can keep going with I'll let you talk about the plot for a while. I don't want to keep throwing you off
No,
here.
I mean, I don't know, for some reason I'm having trouble like remembering it all
Mhm.
clearly. But yeah, so all hell breaks loose, and I think it was actually well sequenced or whatever you want to say at this in this particular section. Because like we said, the First Order shows up and they get there first and like just basically start wiping the place out. And it's not really ever like they just destroy her castle, palace, enclave, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
which is clearly like an ancient temple of some type. It's been there for forever,
Yeah.
and they just kind of wipe it out just like that. So it starts collapsing kind of around everybody, and then you see like Han and Chewie come onto the side with Maz Kanata, and then it sort of like isn't really clear, is it? Like what becomes of her?
No, she just basically, yeah, I don't remember. I think she tells Finn to take the lightsaber because Rey wouldn't take it.
Well, what happens
So,
is she's like, she tells him basically to fight against them, and he said, "Well, I need a weapon," and she gave it to him, and she's like, "You already have it."
Yeah. So she gave it to him before. She's like,
Yeah.
give this to Rey kind of thing. And
Yeah.
So, and then apparently it seems like they train their stormtroopers on how to fight hand-to-hand combat because
Right.
he's got this lightsaber. He seems to know how to use it. And then he meets up with that riot trooper that has that weird little thing that
Right.
that doesn't get
Gun
broken.
baton or something.
Yeah, it's got some kind of energy source around it, so like the lightsaber won't cut it in half.
Right.
And he starts fighting Finn with the lightsaber, so that was kind of weird, just like randomly, like he starts fighting with this lightsaber.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that was leaked about the plot, that like the stormtroopers are trained in how to use like a lightsaber or some sort of sword type weapon, So it might not be he was trained in lightsabers specifically, but he's trained in some sort of martial art that uses like a staff or something, So yeah, they actually end up getting captured because they get overwhelmed.
Right.
So they're marching Han, Chewie, and Finn to it, and all of a sudden the stormtroopers just kind of like stop, and they're like, "Oh shit, we got incoming!" And that's when you see the scene with the X-wings going across the water from the trailers.
That's what I was talking about when I said
Yeah.
I think it was well like paced or whatever. Where for most up to this point, for most of the movie, it's like a mini Empire Strikes Back where like the First Order is kind of just like kicking ass left and right, and it's like just like kind of like fuck, like the heroes get their shit, the shit knocked out of them one way or another, like every scene, and then finally like here comes the cavalry, so to speak.
And apparently Poe Dameron's like the
Yeah.
best star pilot in the galaxy since
The new,
Anakin Skywalker. Holy fudgesicles!
Yeah.
I mean, and see, to me, like that wasn't really annoying. Like, I mean,
No, I dig it.
it was like, he came in and he took out, like, in that 1 10-second clip, he took out, like, 5 TIE fighters, and that was pretty...
And a couple of ground troops. Too.
Yeah, and they were lighting it up. Like, those guys were just, like, dead meat. And so at this point, the cavalry comes and they get in this big, like, air battle, and they're shooting at stormtroopers on the ground, and they basically forget about Han and Chewie.
Right.
So they get their weapons back, so Finn's got the lightsaber again, and they got their crossbow, which I thought was funny. I thought that was kind of cool that like Han used Chewie's crossbow a couple times too. Like you never see him do that.
That's true. Yeah.
He's like, let me try that. He's like, oh, I like this thing.
That's almost like like maybe J.J. Abrams himself as a fan like wanted that or something. That's
Yeah.
definitely somebody's fan moment that had the ability to make that happen. You know.
Yeah. Well, I like that, it's basically like they still have like that quote unquote bromance thing going,
Right.
where like they're just like awesome. Like their chemistry is like exactly
Yeah.
the same as like it used to be. And it's great because like when you see movies like this and they bring the old actors back, sometimes it just doesn't really sit right with you. But it's like they're the same people. Except Leia's voice is a little bit more gruff.
Yeah, she's lived a little.
So it was a little bit different. Like I didn't get the same like touchy-feely moment with her. Like, it was cool that it was
it comes
her.
through another, I think, certain, but yeah.
She has the personality down still. I think it just, like, that, I mean, what the sound is, like, a superficial thing anyway, so it just seemed a little weird.
Noticeable.
But yeah, and that was, Peter Mayhew, I guess. I was reading something in People that, when they asked him to come back, I guess he told J.J. Abrams, like, I've had 2 knee replacements. I can't do a whole lot. He's like, that's cool. Like, we just need you for the close-ups, and we'll have someone, when you're doing, like, a lot of physical stuff. So I couldn't tell. I mean, obviously, you can't really tell, but because they're in a costume. But Peter Mayhew, I mean, he's got mannerisms that Chewie does that you can tell if it's him doing it or for someone else. So whoever they got to be the villain, I couldn't tell when it was.
Well, I actually looked up on IMDb that I just kind of came across it as well. There is a credit. There is a guy who is his stand-in, who's actually considerably shorter than Peter Mayhew at a scant 6'10" and a quarter.
Yeah, right. He's a little bit shorter than him, but
Peter Mayhew's credited at 7'3". I didn't realize he was that tall.
He's a tall guy.
But like you said, there are scenes when Chewbacca's a little more physical where you just kind of assume that's probably not him.
Yeah, it's probably not him.
He's in his 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, Harrison Ford is in his 70s. And actually, just as a side note, to go along with what you're saying about bringing the old actors back, Carrie Fisher has lived kind of roughly in the last 20 years. Had some work done. She was kind of vocal about the fact that they asked her to lose weight for this movie, which is clearly the right call. But in the final result, everybody looks as good as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Like Harrison Ford, I saw him in Expendables 3, and it was great to see him in that, but he looked like shit. He looked frail. His voice was gone. Like, he looked like he could barely fucking, like, walk around.
Yeah.
And then in this, it looked like they took 20 years off his life.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how they did that. It was
like, holy shit. Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like, he had the mannerisms down too. Like every little nitpicky thing. I mean, I watched it really closely to take it all in, especially Harrison Ford, and like that was great. I mean, it was awesome seeing him as Han Solo again.
And they gave him a lot of, they gave him. Well, I guess we haven't got there yet, but
way more than some other people that we haven't talked about yet, you bastards.
Well, I mean, I think with the plot development for his character that we'll get to, I think it makes sense that they gave him
as much as they could.
And he fucking nailed it.
Yep, he did great.
I will say that.
I fucking love Harrison Ford, and I feel bad that he's had such a bad taste in his mouth, so to speak, about the character all these years. And I mean, he did it great. Like,
do you know the background on that? I don't understand.
I don't know. I guess like he just.
I mean, I know during the filming of this movie, he like broke his back or something horrible, but
he broke his leg because like one of the doors fell on him. And JJ broke his back like a vertebrae or something. So it's like we're talking about JJ Abrams, like, JJ, man.
I just get tired of saying everybody's full name.
I know. Harrison and JJ and Mark and Carrie. So yeah, it was pretty good. So this is the point where the cavalry comes in and they eventually fight him off. At the time, we said before, Rey has like a little mini meltdown and runs out into the woods, and of course BB-8 goes after her because like he or she. They said it's a she droid, didn't they? Or it identifies as a female. I don't know.
I think I heard him say he, but I thought like the promo stuff before the movie came out said she. So I'm kind of confused. I don't really know, but I mean, either way, it's a robot. So.
Well, I mean, Bill Hader did the voice. He was a voice consultant, so we'll just say it's a he.
Fair enough.
Yeah, whatever.
I saw that on the way out in the credits it said R2-D2 consultant was Kenny Baker. So I don't know if that means he wasn't in it or.
Well, I guess that's not really a big spoiler. R2-D2 is a very minor role in this movie.
Yeah.
Same thing with C-3PO.
Well, like R2 was kind of tied directly to Luke, I guess.
Yeah, they said that he has, like C-3PO even said, like he hasn't been at full power since Master Luke left or whatever. So obviously this droid has a personality, and he misses his old buddy, like his old master. Like apparently you're supposed to like wipe the memory of those droids, or like they develop like a personality, and obviously R2-D2 has been developing a personality for like 50 years in this story, So, but yeah, he was a very minor role in it. So, but yeah, BB-8 chases Rey out because like he cares about her now because she saved him.
Attached,
Yeah, and Kylo Ren is like, I sense something. She's out here, so he's going out because he senses something about her, or like she. He knows there's something up with her, basically, and he goes after her, and he ends up catching her, and like basically knocks her out unconscious when he's trying to read her mind, and he finds out that the droid showed her the map, so it's in her head somewhere. So he basically like the taxing of him reading her mind like passes her out or whatever. So he picks her up and takes them on a shuttle, and he's like, "Don't worry about the droid, pull back. Well, I got the girl. We'll get it from her." And Finn sees Kylo Ren taking Rey away, and he's like, "Oh my god, we got to get her." He's like, "We got to get this droid back first, and then we'll find her or whatever." So basically, this is the part where they drive the First Order off, and Leia shows up with C-3PO, like off her little command ship or whatever, and like, "Oh, there's Leia, yay!" And they like reunite her and Han. So they've had a pretty stressful relationship, I would think. We alluded to that earlier. So their son is revealed to be Kylo Ren, and he has been. Obviously, he's Leia's kid, so he's going to be Force sensitive. So he's been Luke tried to train him, he turned on him, and now he's trying to fulfill the legacy of Darth Vader because he's been twisted by the person we haven't mentioned yet, Supreme Leader Snoke. And the Resistance actually knows Supreme Leader Snoke because Leia is like, Snoke's going to do this, Snoke's going to do that. So they know who. It's not like he's some puppet master behind the scenes. They know who this guy is.
Yeah, he's not a secret.
So you first see him. Now, when we first see Supreme Leader Snoke, I was like super pissed because I thought it was dumb the way they portrayed it, but I ended up being wrong.
Well, they do all the press and descriptions or whatever that like came out about him before the movie came out. Alluded to him being like much taller. They always say he's much taller than everybody else. Like he's larger. Like they didn't like. I didn't expect that at all. They didn't get the impression that he's a giant.
Yeah.
And that's the impression you get at first.
Yeah, like I was like, dude, this is dumb. If Supreme Leader Snoke is like this 20-foot tall behemoth of some weird alien thing we've never seen before, I'm gonna be kind of mad.
Well, it's an interesting choice. I mean, it's not entirely without precedent in a way because, I guess it makes me think of Empire Strikes Back when he's talking to the Emperor, and the Emperor is like a giant head. Yeah. And then we see that later on, the Emperor is just a regular-sized guy. Yeah,
he's actually more like old and decrepit at that point. He's like bent over with a cane.
It's almost sort of like the Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah, yeah, like the guy. Well, and that's the thing though. When you first see Snoke, like you don't see the blue hologram. It's like they're in some kind of dark chamber, it looks like there's this giant creature on a throne. Yeah, and you're kind of like. I'm thinking in my head, like, really? And I'm like, you get that weird, like, pissed off squint at the screen, and I'm like, eh.
Well, and it's another completely computer-generated character. Yeah. And to me, until they show you it's a hologram, it's another, like, really distracting, like, pulls you out of the moment kind of thing because it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it just looks like a cartoon.
What we've seen to this point, even with, like, those beasts on Han's smuggler ship or whatever, like they weren't really like they weren't like menacingly huge. I mean, they were bigger and they were kind of annoying. Like I said, I didn't really like that little scene with them, but they weren't like like you said, they didn't stick out like a sore thumb. Like it was like, oh, it's just some other creature. But this thing, you were like, what the fuck? Like this is
talking to this big cartoon giant.
I know, like this guy's huge. And then like when they're done talking to him, the projection starts to flicker and the projection goes away, and you could probably hear me audibly like sigh in relief because I'm like, oh, thank God, like that would have been. I mean, I even turned to you, I was like, that would have been stupid if he was that big, So you don't really see Snoke in person; you just see him through hologram in this movie. So yeah, that's a big plot point. You don't actually meet him yet, right? So. Snoke's like, yeah, you sure you can get this information out of the girl or whatever, and then Kylo Ren tries to, and guess what? Rey somehow magically can like force him, or not maybe like force him out of her head, but like block her thoughts against him, and he's visibly struggling.
Yeah, it becomes apparent that she like has a little bit of a quickly has enough of like ability with the Force in her to successfully resist him and even like turn him away, and even actually turn it around on him. She starts reading his mind.
Yeah, and she's like, "You're scared of something."
Yeah.
And you actually kind of find out that Kylo Ren is not a full Sith yet. He's just basically like an acolyte, sort of. And he even says when he's doing his little weird talking to his grandfather's helmet thing, which is what they conveniently left out of the trailer, was like, grandfather, exactly. I'll finish what we started. And you're like, oh, because Leia and Han probably told him that his dad was Darth Vader. That's probably what fucked him up. He's like, Darth Vader's my grandfather? That's cool. You know, it's like if you found out like Al Capone was like your grandfather.
Like it wasn't enough to have Luke be your uncle. Yeah. Whatever, you know. Like.
Yeah. But he even says to the helmet, he's like, oh, I can feel the light again. Like I'm, you know, I've got to like refocus. I don't remember what his exact words were, but
that's the gist,
he basically, you find out right away he's still a conflicted fella.
Right.
Which I kind of, I'll talk about that real quick. That's one of the things I didn't like about Kylo Ren is that he comes off as flawed already. Like, you know, when you see Darth Vader, the first movie, the only thing that he messes up on is that he doesn't kill Luke at the end. Because that timely intervention by Han Solo, he kind of throws him off. But Vader is straight up evil the entire time. Nobody can stop him. He can choke a guy with his finger, like just pointing at him. Like, he's not weak at all.
Yeah.
And that kind of stinks when you see your major villain that you're portraying to have like the flaws already. Like, you know, he's conflicted. Even in the scene we won't talk about yet, it almost, you kind of get the impression that he was faking. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. But he's not, he might not have been because seemed kind of real, but he might have been, I don't know.
It seemed like I guess it's hard not to,
to
say it without saying it.
Okay, okay, let's bookmark that about why he's weak, and we'll talk about that when we get to the end of the movie.
Right.
So yeah, that was really weird, but you find out, Kylo Ren's kind of conflicted still. Like, he's not fully dark side.
Well, I guess just to real quick about the weakness before we head past it is, for me, it was sort of confirmation of my impression of him based on the trailer stuff that we got to see. Like, going into it, I made the comment a couple times that like he just doesn't seem like a credible, believable villain. It's almost like, well, he's just another whiny little bitch who like you know wants to be somebody he's clearly not.
Yeah.
And like, why are we fucking afraid of this kid who throws temper tantrums?
Well, that's the thing.
Black,
well, yeah, you saw that, and the temper tantrum thing went full force in this movie, which was another thing that I felt kind of flawed his character a little bit. When he got mad, he didn't just like. You know how like Vader would get mad and he'd just like kill the person because they messed up and then he'd go about his day? He like pulls out the lightsaber and starts like hacking up the computer screens and he just goes like straight on crazy.
Yeah.
And you're like, he's like basically like throwing a temper tantrum like he was 3 years old. Like he's some little petulant child, you know? So that was kind of weird. Like, I think his character was a little bit too flawed and like he needed to be like more evil.
Yeah.
And like not mess up as much.
The only thing I'm thinking is that he's a straw man. Like, he's just sort of like, you know, the Vader homage is like the obvious thing that I guess the public expects from the new Star Wars movie. And then like, but maybe it'll turn out that's really not like a key part of it at all or something. I don't know.
Well, we'll get to that point too about we'll bookmark the flaws again. There's a bunch of things that like even in the end makes him flawed too, which is like, you know, it's almost like I feel sorry for him. Like, he wasn't badass enough. You know what I mean? I mean, he still looked pretty cool. And I kind of got over, like, the Dark Knight Rises Bane voice that he had a little bit. I just didn't like the way that it was synthesized. I
don't like a lot about the character. The execution, the costume design, you know, a lot of it just didn't work for me.
Well, what I like about... overall, I was kind of, like I said, he should have been more badass. I like his costume and the fact that it kind of gives you... it's almost like he's an old school dark side guy. Like, you'd almost like he's a throwback to, you know, Sith from like thousands of years ago. Like, that's what his suit kind of told me, which I like the fact that we don't really know officially what the history of the Sith and the Jedi are, you know. And so that kind of gives a little mystique to it. And then, of course, when you see a certain someone else later on, like, it kind of does the same thing. But
well, I just feel like they used kind of violence in it kind of ratcheted up violence in a lot of ways to almost make up for his shortcomings as a believable badass in a way. Even like the sound of him turning on the lightsaber and the sound of his like usage of the Force to like throw things around or whatever. Just it sounded a lot more percussive and bassy in this than it ever has.
Yeah, I was gonna say like when he was like controlling something with his hand, it was almost like you could hear the rumble of the Force. And I think, and they might have done that on purpose just to say that like, yeah, this guy still is like rough around the edges, like he isn't refined yet. I don't know if that was why they did it or not, but
it's just a little more jarring to me. Like Jesus, that's a little, I don't know.
Yeah, the one thing, most of his Force use was okay. I didn't like when he stopped like that blaster bolt like mid-air and held it there the whole time until he walked away. And like
that sort of contradicts everything else they show in view, like you were saying. Like out of the gate, they make him seem like he already is like this full-fledged super badass. Like you've never seen Darth Vader do anything like that.
Yeah, he stopped it with his hand. And he let it come to his hand, you know, when Han was shooting at him in Empire. But yeah.
Well, like, then he ignores the blaster bolt, and it still just stays there as if, like, he's that powerful to just sort of not even think about it, and it's, you know.
Yeah.
But then you see, you know, I don't know. Maybe
other stuff that, he kind of wussed out a little bit, I guess.
But yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. So, yeah, basically when he takes Rey, he takes her back to Starkiller Base, and this is where she's all, like, he's trying to mind control her or not. So, meanwhile, you know, they bring Finn and BB-8 back to the Resistance base.
Right.
And they're like, okay, what are we going to do next, basically? And like Leia's like, well, we got this map, but I don't have the rest of it, you know. I guess like apparently R2-D2 has it in his memory bank somewhere, but he won't turn on. And BB-8's like trying to like force him to turn on, but he's just kind of like whatever. Which is weird too. Like what triggers him to turn on? Like I didn't even really get that. He just all of a sudden did it, you know.
Yeah.
Or was there something I missed? I don't remember.
There's a bunch of theories, and they kind of leave it vague. And obviously, in the real world, he did it because he needed to.
Yeah. Like, well, you know what? Just let's move this along a little bit.
Yeah.
Just tell him. Okay, we're gonna have RGD just show him, like he's gonna snap out of it. But so yeah, they're like, we can't do this, but they know now that Finn's with them, he knows where Starkiller Base is. So and they're like, yeah, they're getting ready to use this thing, and they actually do use it while they're on the Maz Kanata's world because they can see the. Basically, it's like a Death Star, but it can kill an entire solar system or something. Like it destroyed like 5 planets at once or something. That was like really whoa.
It's kind of frustrating because it's like it's another Death Star.
Yeah.
But and they even make a point to say this in the movie. Like they hit you over the head with it. They put up the graphic like this was the original Death Star, and this is this thing, and it's like 5 times the size. So like the Death Star was the size of a moon, and I take it that this thing is now the size of a planet.
Yeah,
it actually is a planet.
It is. Yeah, it's probably like a small. Like planet like Pluto or something, like if you want to use our solar system size, like Death Star would be like our moon, and I guess like it'd be the size of Mars or something, or like maybe even Earth.
Well, it's I don't know. It's one of those things that like it reads to me as well. This is a modern audience, so we have to ratchet everything up.
Yeah,
it's not a moon; it's a planet, and it doesn't just destroy one planet; it destroys 5 at a time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
it was crazy. Well. Well, the good thing that I guess, like as far as the plot goes, they only did it once, which I'm kind of glad because I wouldn't want the First Order to just start obliterating star systems left and right. You know, that would have been just like what?
Like solar system destroyed.
Yeah, I know. Like, come on, man. That's I think where they ratcheted up the violence too. I mean, destroying Alderaan was like, whoa, that's a lot of people they killed. They just killed 5 planets at once, and one of them looked like Coruscant, but I don't think it was though. I think it was just another city center somewhere. They didn't really say.
I think it like was I guess it was like the chief planet in that system that the rebel base is part of or whatever in this movie.
Yeah, or it's close to it or something. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, they don't even they tell you
look like it.
Well, they tell you that it's in the Ilium system or something, right, but I've never even heard of that. And I guess like in the promo material they tell you the name of the planet the base is on, but it's something I never heard of. So they actually didn't use any of the old planets. You know, that they did. Yeah, like, I mean, Jakku's basically like the Tatooine of the new trilogy, but it's not called Tatooine.
Right.
And, you know, the base is like basically Yavin 4 for this one. Right. And then even the temple. Yeah. What? Wait a minute. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. We're saving this for last. But that even looked like it too. But, so anyway, they devise a plan to they're going to rescue Rey, and at the same time, well, Finn wants to. They don't really sanction it, so to speak. But they're going to attack this thing before it kills more planets. Right. But they keep, like we said before, they keep alluding to they don't have the Republic fleet. How are we going to do this? It's like, well, fucking call the Republic fleet. Exactly. But I guess at this point, they don't have time.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, time is of the essence. So they only got a bunch of, like, basically a squadron of X-Wings. And they're led by Poe Dameron, who is a badass X-Wing pilot. But so they it's like, and this is your homage to Endor. You got one team goes down to get rid of the shields, and the other guy's got to make their trench run kind of thing or whatever. But yeah, you're right. This it really is almost like everything's almost like an homage, not only to like certain physical objects, but like that's totally like the Death Star. That's totally like this scene. That's what I mean. So that you get a lot of that, which is why I think people like it as much as they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to criticize without being intentionally insulting or whatever, it's basically like kind of safe.
Yeah.
Which I guess I technically understand from Disney's standpoint. But
like it's almost like they had to make this movie safe because of what the negative reaction to 1, 2, and 3 got. It's like, well, we got to do something that they're gonna like. Let's like suck them in with this, and then we can take a little bit more liberty with the other two, which is like J.J. Abrams isn't going to even direct those. Right. So, but yeah, you're right. It was like kind of a safe bet to do this. So, but yeah, so the short of it is they go Han, Chewie, and Finn go to save Rey, and they also need to knock out the shield generator while Poe and his squadron are going to attack from the sky.
Right, they need to knock out the shield generator that protects the thermal exhaust port, just like it's a thermal oscillator. I mean,
it was like
even a thermal something,
Yeah, well, I mean, at least in this case, it's like they know that that's a design flaw, and they've got a shield over it. Like, okay, look, if there's a shield here, they're going to attack this, whatever. Like, who even made Starkiller Base? I don't even get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered stuff.
It's almost like this is obviously like. This had to have existed before the Death Star, so I almost kind of feel like, well, we can't really move the Starkiller Base around, so let's make this little mini Death Star. Like, where did this come from?
Well, did it, or did they like just kind of retrofit this planet with a giant fucking sun-eating laser cannon?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It gets power from the sun. It drains like all the energy it can from the sun, and then
sucks in and eats a whole sun to charge its weapon, which seems like it would sort of destroy their ability to live on it or whatever. But
it's already like
don't think too hard.
Don't think too hard. It's a plot hole. But,
but that's another example. Like the planning stages of this attack is another example of a scene that felt really rushed to me. Really like what are we gonna do? I don't know. Well, this is what worked before. Or, I don't know. Just like very quickly, like, oh, we gotta attack it. Okay, let's go. Yeah. It was Poe Dameron in particular was just like, let's move. And it just seemed like
he had like ADD or something, man. He had to keep doing stuff. But I was surprised they didn't really use him as much as I thought they would either. I mean, he wasn't in a significant amount.
Well, we did cover it before, but they spent a lot of the movie sort of making you think he was possibly dead.
Yeah. So you didn't have you had no idea. Like, is that it? One and done.
Right.
But yeah, so there's that, and then so before they leave, I gotta backtrack a minute.
Right.
Han and Leia have a little conversation, like, if you see our son, I know there's still good in him, and try to bring him back. So that's an important point.
Yeah.
So they're on this planet, and they're waiting for the shield to come down or whatever, or they're gonna attack it. Like, they start attacking at the same time, don't they? They're just kind of like holding them off.
Well, this is when they use the hyperspace to penetrate the shield of the planet and land
with the Millennium Falcon. Right?
So then like that, Han and Chewie and who's with him?
Finn's with him, yeah. And then his side mission is to get Rey, because Rey's already broken out now. She actually somehow figures out to use mind control. Like, she's never been taught.
Right. She's sort of like,
Force,
I'm gonna try this.
Yeah, like she feels like she can influence the guard to let her go. So she must have been trained at some point, just doesn't remember or something.
I mean, I guess it lends credence to the whole, like, maybe she's like another one of Luke's students or whatever thing. But I guess I took it as, because the scene where she pisses off Kylo Ren by, reading his thoughts comes before that. So I guess I took it as maybe she sort of picked something up about what the capabilities are while she was in there.
Yeah, she could have like read it in his mind that like he does this all the time to people to manipulate them or something. Right. Maybe I can do it, But yeah, so she escapes using mind control, and then that was kind of one of the points that I didn't like too, was all the comedy that was in the movie. Like, this was like kind of almost like a funny scene, because like he's like, no, what did she say? She's like, you're gonna let me out of these shackles and leave the door open. He's like, I'm gonna tighten these shackles and not, or whatever. And then she tries it again, and then he finally breaks, and then as he's walking away, she's like, oh, and leave your gun. He's like, and leave my gun, and drops it and just walks off. It was like, ha ha ha.
It's a little too.
But I'm like, well, that's not like the humor that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not the humor you're looking for.
Like I said, you brought it up, so I'll add my own 2 cents to that as an aside. There was somebody I read online and basically summed up my thoughts, and I'm going to steal their line or sort of paraphrase their line. But between that moment and Finn and Poe Dameron both have moments on their own earlier in the movie where they're almost flippant, almost like a little too like hip and sarcastic or whatever.
Yeah, I got a little bit too much swagger.
Yeah. And it's like, basically, if everyone's Han Solo, no one's Han Solo,
Yeah, exactly.
including Han Solo.
Yeah, no,
like they're out Han Soloing Han Solo.
Yeah, like they did. They made a lot of the people. Well, yeah, because like Poe and that when Kylo Ren confronts him, he's like, "So do I talk first or do you talk first?"
Right.
Like, ha, you're a smart ass, Poe.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
just
okay.
piss off the Sith Lord. Well, he's not a Sith Lord yet. But,
Like, okay, we get it. He's trying to be defiant and brave or whatever. But like,
it would have been more defiant if he just spit in his face.
Yeah.
That would have been cool, you know.
and if they had limited it to just that, like, it still would have annoyed me, but I'd have been like, whatever, that's whatever.
Yeah.
Then it happened, like, again with Finn and again with her in that scene. It's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I know. It's like, all right, I'm getting sick of
Yeah,
the
this is
humor
a
here.
little, like I said, it almost, like, breaks the fourth wall. It's almost like a looking at the audience kind of thing, like, I'm cool, right?
Yeah, like, I can make this funny, too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just C-3PO being whiny and funny. It's
Right.
some funny stuff. So they're looking for Rey, you know, and they find her. Well, actually, they have to set the charges to blow up the shield first.
Right.
Unfortunately, we get to the major, huge spoiler. This is the big one, which we actually talked about is possibly happening anyway.
Yeah, it seemed pretty inevitable.
It seemed pretty inevitable, just based on real-world situations and things, too. Well, Han does see his son, who you reveal, this is where they reveal his name's Ben, because he yells out his name, as like he's walking across this weird plank bridge thing that's somehow connecting this huge gap in the middle of the
just
planet.
for no reason, he just
kind of like
sort of a...
Kind of like Cloud City, if you ask me.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, it's a callback to that the physical structure where Darth Vader tells Luke he's his father.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of similar, just a bigger on steroids version for 2015.
Yeah, exactly. It's gotta be a little bit bigger. You know. New audience. So he sees, you know, Kylo Ren / Ben Solo walking across this plank, and he yells out to him because like Kylo can sense that he's there as his dad. So he's like, oh, looking for me. Like he knows he's in the right area, but just kind of like walks in the wrong direction. So Han sees him and walks out into the middle of this catwalk or whatever to confront him. And they have this scene where he's trying to get Kylo Ren to come back with him. He's like, you know, take your mask off and look at me with your face or whatever. And, you know, Chewie, who's setting the charges over in this other random part of where they were, stops and sees this, and he's like, they're just like kind of looking, and then this is where Rey and Finn have met up, and they come back and find him, and they're like looking on, like, oh my god, what's gonna happen?
Well, as soon as fucking Han was like, you take the high road, I'll take the low road, or whatever, you know, it's like, okay, they're splitting them up, like, this can only be bad.
This is where it's happening, like, this is what we were waiting for, we're speculating, and so Han tries to get him to come, and it looks like Kylo's a little conflicted. Like he starts to cry and he's sad, but you don't really know if it's like a mask or if he's faking it or whatever. I couldn't really tell. I mean, he very well could have been faking it, but I think at this point he's still having like, you know, did I make the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? And this is my dad who I don't care about anymore because he basically, for some reason, like he doesn't like Han Solo. You don't know why. They just had some sort of rift, and it might just be because he's influenced by the dark side. Yeah, he tries to get him to come and everything. He's like, you know, please help. What did he say? He's like, you know, help like release this pain I'm feeling or whatever.
Something along those lines.
And he holds out his lightsaber, so Han grabs it to take from him, but Kylo Ren ends up like igniting it and then turning it and basically kills Han Solo with it. So
well, what happened was
Han Solo's dead.
I don't know if you noticed this or if I'm just like looking for something here. It seemed to me almost a Teen Wolf moment because the whole time they're like basically setting the charges, they're racing against the clock because they're sucking the sun dry, and the whole thing they keep saying is once the sun's gone, that's it, it's charged. Like we've got time as long as there's light. Yeah. And then while Han Solo is gripping the lightsaber, you see Kylo doesn't let go of it quite, and then the sun gets fucking used up, and then like it's all dark, so that's when he starts pulling the grip on the lightsaber, and that's when he turns on. Like it's almost like there's a this parallel between like there was an opening, and then they suck the sun dry or whatever. Yeah. I keep saying dry, like as if it's water. But anyway, the remnants of the sun get sucked into the planet or whatever, and so I think there's a correlation there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good call. I didn't notice the art to that scene that much. I was more like just waiting for him to die.
Yeah.
I think I didn't really look into it that much. But yeah, that's actually a pretty good catch right there.
The only reason I caught that is because I was holding on to every last possible fucking
Yeah,
hope that he wouldn't actually, like, they were going to fake everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Got a lightsaber right through his gut. And it was kind of a, I guess you could say, a touching moment, because even as he's dying, he like puts his hand on his face, like, I never, kind of like, I love you, I've never like lost faith in you, like, even though you've turned bad, like, there's hope for you, kind of thing. And he ends up collapsing and falls over the side and into oblivion. Like, we have no idea what happens to him. But
I sort of was still waiting for him to say I love you or something.
Yeah,
just really,
but
like,
that wouldn't be a Han Solo moment, though. He'd be like, I know.
Well, the reason I thought maybe they'd do it is because, like, this was the one thing, like, the one moment where they could, like, really bring down the walls of the dashing Han Solo. And, like, but and he went out like a boss.
Yeah, he did. Well, like you said, his role, in the movie was very significant. Like, he was important to the plot,
absolutely.
And I think that was a good homage to his character. And you're right. I mean, he, at that point, the whole, most of the trilogy, the original, like, Han Solo's like the solo guy, even though he, as his namesake, even when he's helping them, he's still Han Solo. Like, he's like, I don't really want to do this, but I'm kind of have to.
Yeah.
And this is the point where you're like, finally he realizes there's something bigger than him, but then he dies right in front of it, and
right.
And obviously at this point, like, him and Leia kind of like start to reconcile. And they get that nice little warming hug at the end before she leaves, and she even feels him die, because she's attuned to the Force too. She doesn't appear to be a Jedi, but she's still.
I actually thought they were going to do more with that, and I think I'm glad they kind of didn't, but I'm glad they, like, blatantly showed that she, obviously felt disturbed to the Force.
Yeah, like, she felt him die. So and I'm kind of glad, because it wouldn't make sense for her to be a Jedi. I mean, she's so busy with, like, all the stuff that she had to do, probably, that, like.
I don't think I'd want her to ever be a full-fledged Jedi or anything like that, but I guess I'd want to see her be able to, like, I don't know, randomly, like, grab something from across the room or whatever, like, when the shit hit the fan.
Or she had one of those, like, Luke rage moments, like when he attacked Vader or the Jedi, where she taps into some unseen power and, unleashes it or something. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, she's been a leader of the rebellion, now she's a general. It's like, she doesn't have time to train for a Jedi, and Luke was probably like, you're way too old to start training anyway or something. Who knows? Like, I mean, they've bent the rules of that throughout the trilogy, or even the prequel trilogy, so.
Right.
And then Han dies, and Chewie goes into, like, Wookiee rage and starts shooting everybody. He actually gets a shot on Kylo Ren, which I think is pivotal, because he gets shot in the stomach, and that kind of affects him in the final battle here. Like, he's not his full self, so of course Kylo Ren gets shot by a blaster. But I mean, if he just, like, killed his dad, he's probably not sensing everything around. He probably doesn't even know fucking Chewie's there, and Chewie just, like, bam, gets a good shot in on him.
You've got the fact that he's not, like, full-fledged Sith, or that, like, advanced in his ability to use the Force or whatever already, and then obviously the impact of what just happened, whether he's evil or not. Like, obviously that's a huge moment.
Yeah.
So he's sort of in a daze, and we've seen, like, this Chewie's bowcaster is, like, shown throughout the movie to, like, send fucking stormtroopers flying because it's so concussive, and so he takes that to the stomach, and obviously, like, that does something to you.
That actually happens in Battlefront, the video game. Like, you can get the bowcaster's not a weapon that you can use all the time. It's like one of your side cards. So if you click the button, you get, like, one charge and one shot, and then it has to cool down and wait, and you can use it again. But if you charge it all the way, it shoots, like, a spread of, like, 5 lasers, and if you're close to one of the guys you're killing, they, like, go flipping and flying or backwards or whatever. It's pretty neat that it kind of does the same thing. It's cool. It's a pretty powerful weapon if you can get a point blank shot fully charged, but if you hold the charge for too long, it just lets it go on its own. So. But whatever. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, the bowcaster is pretty badass, and, like, he takes it, like, right in the gut, and, like, he's, like, down, like, he falls down, and is like, oh shit,
Yeah, like, that's real.
Yeah, and then everybody freaks out, everybody starts crying. They're like, no, but then Chewie's, like, shooting every fucking stormtrooper you can see. It was a pretty good depiction of Wookiee rage. Like you said, it could have been a little bit more rage-like. I
guess I just thought because he's so fucking connected to Han Solo, he would have just, like, torn the walls down,
Yeah.
But obviously, whatever.
We're at time constraints at this
Time
point.
constraints and practicality.
And because you saw it happen when they were taking Han away in Empire. He's throwing stormtroopers left and right. Of course, there's no one like actually standing there, but he's just like doing like almost like behind the back, no look shots. Like he didn't, but that's what I was getting the impression like he was going to start. But he gets a shot in on Kylo Ren, which ends up being kind of important. I think even we could argue that, but I think it's pretty important that he gets that shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as they leave, he sets the charges. So now he like blows like a hole in the side of the planet basically, and the X-wing pilot's like, oh hey shit, like the thing's down or whatever. There's a hole in the array now. Let's go get it. And of course, what do? They do a fucking trench run through the planet. So I'm like, gee, what does that look like? But at this point, Finn and Rey are escaping on the surface, but Kylo Ren catches up to him, and now he's all like, "Oops, well, I just killed my dad, and I'm gonna kill you two motherfuckers." So, and this is like it's weird because you're right because he seems to be a badass, but then he's not because at this point he basically throws Rey into a tree, and she falls down like collapsed.
It probably should have killed her.
Yeah, it probably should have. I mean, she would have
depicted the impact.
Yeah, the way it was like a forceful throw into the tree. So now this is where you see the famous Finn. Kylo Ren fight. Now Finn isn't force trained, but he knows how to use the lightsaber like we talked about before. So
before we go too far past that, just real quick, did you think it was inconsistent or at least interesting or curious, I guess, how like they showed initially established Kylo Ren like in the beginning as like just pretty fucking badass. And then they sort of like chip away at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously he's already like weakened by that shot. And then like so he's in the middle of this room that they're in on this bridge thing, and they're like up top, and they're like basically in a doorway. They just turn around, they're already outside.
Yeah.
But somehow he's already out there waiting for them by the time the camera you know what I mean?
Yeah, like how did he get there so fast? Yeah, it was. I mean, I guess like you could always explain it away. Sequentially, what you saw on camera, was like X amount of time, but there was a behind the scenes time. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where it's like just convenient that he just showed up again. How did he get there?
I guess I just felt it as like an inconsistency in his portrayal. Like, oh wait, so he force jumped that whole span of distance and ended up way ahead of where they were? I don't know.
Right. Even though this blaster bolt's obviously affecting him because he keeps like weaker. Well, he's like pounding his chest area, and I guess it's like squirting blood out or something where he got shot to like clear it out. I don't know what he's doing.
I wasn't exactly sure. Like I thought maybe he was like hitting it on purpose to make it hurt more to like fuel him or something. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of bizarre to watch.
Yeah, it was weird. That was a weird thing to see in a Star Wars movie. Like, you know what I mean? Just it didn't seem like it was almost like that was out of a war movie.
A war movie or like Taxi Driver or something where fucking Kylo Bickle is going insane. He's shaved his head into a mohawk.
Yeah. It's like,
but yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. So at this point, he's fighting Finn, and he I wouldn't say he easily dispatches him, but he eventually overpowers him with his lightsaber skills, and he gives Finn
Finn puts up a decent fight for somebody who has no business putting up a decent fight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, where is his character going to go after this? Because he doesn't seem to be a Jedi; he just seems to be a soldier. So who's he going to turn into?
I hope it's not anything to do with Jedi.
I mean, he might, but
I don't want that.
Yeah, it'd be better if they just got a couple more no names, or we got to find more Jedi or something. Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, Kylo gets a pretty good swipe across his back, which knocks him out, and you don't really know if he's dead or alive yet.
Yeah, probably should have killed him.
But the lightsaber he's using is Anakin's lightsaber, and it flies out of Finn's hand into the snow, and that's what we talked about before, where it seemed like it was right out of the homage to the ice cave in Hoth, where it was stuck in the ice or whatever.
Yeah.
So he sees it, and he tries to use his force power to pull it into his hand, because he's a good 20 yards away or so, and he's having trouble doing it. He's like, what the hell? And then when it comes flying out of the snow, it flies past him, and Rey has come to, and she's doing the same thing, and catches it. And, he's like, give that back to me, that's mine, because, as you know, he's Darth Vader's grandfather and her grandson, and he's obsessed with finding anything that has to do with Darth Vader, apparently, which is another hint you were given before the movie started.
Yeah, before.
Which they don't say a goddamn word.
Yeah, they don't reference it at all in the movie, which is under the category of kind of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Or unconfirmed rumor.
Yeah, unconfirmed rumor, or who said it, I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically the climax is Rey and Kylo Ren fighting a lightsaber fight. because you kind of were led to believe it was Finn and Kylo Ren, but
Right.
Finn's down and out at this point, and Rey, to make a long story short, basically kicks the shit out of him at the end. Like she slices him up in all sorts of ways, and he collapses, and now she doesn't kill him. At this point, the planet, they have attacked the array. It's going
Right.
down. It's like a chain reaction. The planet's collapsing around everybody. So there's a huge like ravine, like forms between them. So now they're separated. So she's like, well, whatever, and runs away.
Right.
I can't finish this. I guess she doesn't know enough to jump over a ravine with her force powers. I don't know. So she escapes. Chewie actually comes to and picks up, she finds Finn's body, and that's the scene where you see her crying over because she thinks that he's dead. But she sees the spotlight of the Millennium Falcon turn on, and Chewie comes, and lands and like picks up Finn, and they run in the Falcon and get away. So as the planet's exploding, the Falcon, Poe Dameron, and like probably, I like the fact that it wasn't like 3 X-wings, it was like 10, so they didn't like completely decimate them, even though they
Right.
lost about half their force. So they escape, and right before that, as the planet's collapsing, General Hux goes up to the Snoke hologram and is like, yeah, it's collapsing. We need to get out of here. And he's like, So he's pissed, but he's like, bring Kylo Ren to me. We have to finish his training. So at that point, you're like, okay, Snoke is obviously the Sith Lord somehow. Like, who, from where? We don't know.
Yeah, they don't really go into it.
And basically, like you're saying, Kylo Ren's kind of like a little pawn almost. And he's like, all right, we got to finish this guy's training because obviously he's incompetent. Just got fucked up by someone who's not even a full Jedi yet,
Right.
But she seems to be super powerful, so that's another reason why I think she's a Skywalker, because like she's just inherently powerful, and that's like basically their lineage is they're conceived from the Force basically, so they're descendants of the Force, which is weird to say, but so they get back to the Rebel base, and this is what I find weird too. Chewie gets off the Falcon and walks right by Leia and doesn't say
the same
damn
thing.
word to her.
Han Solo is this is the first time they've seen each other since Han Solo's dead.
And I just walked right by
And he just literally passes her, like, right next to her, like a foot away, just walks right past her, doesn't even acknowledge her.
Yeah, because he, like, hugs her when he sees her the first time.
When she first shows up,
You would think that, like, he would have at least, like, put his hand on her shoulder and gave a Wookiee howl because Han's dead.
Or, like,
But
some sort of...
she basically gets embraced by Rey. Like, they hug each other because, like, they both have come to care about this guy, and he's dead now, and, she felt it. So, basically, that confirmed it. But,
See,
yeah,
that
that
was
was
my-
weird. Like,
That was my, for me, okay, so just to reference what we said earlier about, so you have always sort of assumed that Rey was Luke's daughter, which seems to be the consensus. Like I said, I assumed that she was another of Han and Leia's kids, and to me, that, went along with, was another piece of confirmation, I guess.
Yeah,
where
could have been.
she hugged Leia in a way that sort of looked, it could have been like what you said, and to me, I read it as, like, I finally found the person I've been looking for who left me or whatever, or like part of it anyway. Like,
Could have been,
it was it was too much of a familiar hug. Like, why? You know what I mean? So anyway, that's what helped me reinforce my angle on it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your angle. It's definitely a possibility. Like, we don't really know. I mean, it's just,
nobody knows.
It's pure speculation.
Well,
at
like I
this point.
say, it seems the consensus seems to be the Luke thing, which I just never even considered.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be some other explanation too. Because, like, remember you heard apparently Ewan McGregor say Rey.
Right.
So could this be some weird relative of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah,
That's like his
possible.
granddaughter or something. Who knows?
But I guess my point about the Chewie thing in that moment is, it's like a thorn in my side, because obviously the Rey hugging Leia scene needed to happen to advance something about her character in the plot.
Yeah.
But to not have Chewie even acknowledge Leia in that moment is like a key piece of this story they've been building for 40 years that like just got ignored.
That was weird. Like,
Yeah.
I think that as little as that sounds, that might be probably like my biggest problem with the movie was that little.
Well, it was little in
Acknowledgement,
terms
yeah.
of like screen time, but
It was my
huge.
second biggest problem. Sorry.
Yeah.
My first biggest problem's coming up. Okay, so R2D2 comes to. They find the map. They're like, holy fucking shit. We found out where Luke Skywalker's hiding. So they send Rey, who is obviously the Force affinity person here. Finn is alive. He's laying in a hospital bed or something, and she's like, I'll see you again soon, But you can hear him beep, the beep, beep, beep of him. He's alive. He's just in a coma or something.
Right.
So Chewie and R2 take Rey and the Millennium Falcon to this mystery place. They do make a reference earlier in the movie that, like, the rumor is that Luke went to look for the first Jedi Temple because he did something wrong, he feels like, I guess. So he needs to go back to where this all started and learn what the Force is really about, I guess. So they finally go to the fucking planet where Luke is. They show, like, this 2-minute scene of Rey climbing up the side of a mountain, up through these ruins of some place we don't know yet. Right. And finally, there's this hooded figure standing on the cliff. Now, this sucks because this is the end of the fucking movie right here. Luke obviously senses someone's there. He turns around, takes off his hood, okay? He does not appear to be evil, so we don't have to quit Star Wars.
The good news is
he does not appear to be evil. He's wearing... it looks like traditional Jedi robes, look a little bit older. They're grayish, sort of.
Yeah.
And he's got his mechanical hand, so like he's missing the flesh from his.
Yeah,
he always has.
Interesting. No glove, no nothing.
Well, because he had shot in Jedi. There's a big hole in it. And he just puts the glove over it. So when did he lose the actual? Maybe he was just like, this is stupid. And he just has a mechanical hand. Which, of course, this kind of goes back to the whole Anakin thing, where his hand gets cut off, and in like the end of the episode 2, which is the worst piece of shit ever made.
Right.
He's holding hands with Padme and the mechanical hand. So it's like, I don't know what the connection is, but he turns around and sees Rey there. He takes the hood off, and he's just kind of staring at her. She pulls out the lightsaber, and she holds it up, and he gets this like knowing look on his face, and then they like pan out, and you see them on this like mountain, kind of just looking at each other, and the camera goes around, and there it is.
And they close.
He doesn't even fucking say a word in this movie, man.
I'm okay with it, I guess, but I think the execution for that was a little weird because they hold on the moment where she's got her hand reached out, like trying to give the lightsaber to him for like an awkwardly long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just leaves her like standing there holding it out for like, I don't know, more than enough time to have said something.
Or walk over to her and take it from her.
Any of the above.
Something.
But like, I mean, from every conceivable camera angle, she's just standing there with her arm out.
Mm-hmm.
And then then it pans to the sweeping, almost like a helicopter shot, rotating 360 around them while she's still just standing there and he's still just standing there. And then which is fine to close on that moment, but not after that much time. It's just, why aren't you doing anything?
I felt like that would have... Like I said earlier in the theater, I'm like, that should have been 15 minutes longer. Just maybe give me like 5 minutes more of him, like...
Of something.
Like, I get, like, yes, it is kind of cool that he didn't say anything, but it's kind of not cool. If he said, like, took it and was like... He was kind of... And he said something like, where'd you get this? And she said something, and he's like, all right, follow me. And, like, they walk off into the temple... You still don't know what's going on, like it's just too. It's like you're right. That is a good scene to kind of end it on, but like there has to be a little bit more. There's something, and I really think that waiting for 2 hours and 15 minutes to see Luke Skywalker finally, for him to not say anything either, is just kind of like a slap in my face almost. It's like we wanted fucking Luke at some point, and they set it up enough times where I thought he might just randomly show up to save the day, but he didn't. And he's still just chilling on his little island, and they find him finally, and it's great, but nothing happened. And it's just like, damn it.
Well, I guess, the takeaway is Episode 8 is the Han Solo movie.
Yep.
Episode 7. Episode 8 is clearly going to be the Luke Skywalker movie. I can only hope and imagine.
Yeah. Well, they said he's on set. Like he went back to that same Skellig Michael or whatever they call it in Ireland, where they filmed that little island scene. He's been on set, and he even said he did something where he had to shave, and then he tweeted that, time to grow the beard out again, going back to set. So he's obviously going to be in it, and he doesn't like show up and die and come back he's going to be a physical human being in episode 8. So hopefully, I would like to see him have more of a pivotal role now that he's finally showed up. But man, they did that on purpose because I want more Luke Skywalker now.
Absolutely have you on more.
Here we are. We've got to wait 16 months or whatever the fuck it is to see it, and it's just like, man, like that's so... I mean, that to me was probably the biggest problem I had with it. I mean, like it works in so many ways, but it doesn't work in so many ways either. Like
I get it, and it could have been...
Yeah.
it could have been fine, but I just think the execution, like the idea was good, but the execution I think was poor.
Yeah. I mean, because even the rumors we heard was that it was like more like a extended cameo. That was not an extended cameo. That was a straight up cameo.
That's a cameo.
Yeah, there was no other way to describe it. But hey, it was Mark Hamill in the flesh, wearing Jedi robes. So.
He looked great. I thought they made him look awesome. I liked the long hair, and like he definitely was his own version of Obi-Wan, I guess.
Well, that's what they've been alluding to. He even said in interviews like years ago, George Lucas is like, how would you like to come back and play this character like 20 years from now, but you're kind of like the Obi-Wan who's passing the torch, and that's kind of what we're getting. Like Rey is obviously going to be this like the new Hope, basically. She's going to be the one that's going to be able to take out Kylo Ren. I'm assuming that Luke and Snoke are going to have to fight at some point, which would be pretty cool.
I think I said this in one of our conversations before the movie came out, probably months ago. One of my disappointments, I guess, from the original trilogy was never really getting to see Luke in his glory.
Yeah.
And god damn it, they better fucking deliver in this 8th.
Well, yeah, and the thing about Luke in his glory, like, you see Luke at his most powerful when he succumbs to the dark side for like a minute to defeat Vader.
He dips his toe.
Yeah, he has to, almost. It's like he's had enough of this. He needs to end it. And then even when he defeats Vader, the Emperor makes him, like, punks him out, with lightning, and then Vader has to save him. And it's like, you're right, you never really see Luke as like this crazy, not crazy, but like this just super powerful thing. And like even
you get like tastes of it, like with the escape from the Jabba's stuff. And
like it's not
they're
quite
not a challenge for him.
Yeah, they're a bunch of cronies. They're thugs basically. Boba Fett would have been, but he went off like a punk too. And it's like, man. But yeah, like you're right. You never really see like full blown Luke Skywalker just like taking him out.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like, he's even in he's in his 50s now. So, he's probably in physical shape where he could do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I guess he lost a bunch of weight, too.
Yeah.
He feels better than he has in 20 years.
Well, he said he was, like, lifting weights and everything. Yeah. So, it's like, he could do his fair share of if he could be as physical as Harrison Ford was, I think it would work out. But, yeah, it's like, what's going to happen? Is he just going to be... Maybe we're going to see super powerful Luke not fight anybody, maybe just in his training or his ability to use the Force. That would be okay with me. He doesn't have to be a warrior per se. He could be a Yoda-like character and be...
He doesn't necessarily have to have this ridiculous, lightsaber fight and destroy people or whatever. But I want to get the impression that he's a fucking serious...
Like, he's the man.
He's this fucking living legend come back and people are just fucking... Their jaws drop.
Yeah. Like, what did he do? You get a little bit of an idea of what he did, because Han even says, like, he tried to train a new generation of Jedi, and then the Knights of Ren killed them all. And it's like, oof.
And even in that, like, a little bit of backstory, he comes off as, like, a fucking, like, he fell short. You know? Like, what the fuck?
Yep.
We're fucking gonna be 5 movies in by the time the next one comes out, and it's like...
Well, I kind of feel like there has to be something, like, he obviously wasn't there when it happened. Because, like, he would have probably stopped it if it, when he saw, like, the 5 Knights of Ren, he would have been like, psh, who are you punks, like, oh, you're my old apprentice. You know what I mean? He would have known, but for some reason, so, yeah, like, he's just, like, always in the wrong place at the wrong time at this point, Like, in the first trilogy, he's in the right place at the right time every single time, but now it's like, shit, maybe they tricked him into something or whatever, who knows what happened.
Yeah, we got it. End up with a little more background on the Knights of Ren stuff.
Yeah, we'll definitely get it. I think that's I started to read like an internet headline where it's like, oh, after all these questions, we still don't know about the, and I'm like, shit, I didn't read any more because that's where it cut off for the screen or whatever.
Clickbait thing.
Yeah, the clickbait, and I was like, okay, so we don't know more about the what? And I'm like, the Knights of Ren maybe, or maybe we don't know about the Resistance or whatever.
Well, honestly, you could fill in the blank. There's a lot.
There is a lot.
Description.
Now, this sounded like we talked about a lot of stuff that we didn't like. There are a lot of like minor things. I think, like, for me, I'll just say for me, the biggest thing was the lack of Luke was one of the things that sucked.
Yeah.
The Chewie scene where he basically like walks by Leia after Han dies kind of sucked. And like you were saying before, about how the flow seemed off at points, like there was too much or too little.
Right.
I think that they could have done better in that sense.
The comedic / snarkiness.
The comedy, the snarky, like you said, everybody can't be Han Solo, and nobody is, and that was definitely a big thing I had about it. Some of the, like I said, the creatures I didn't really like that much. Like that thing on the ship was kind of like, it would have been better if they just showed that one scene where it like banged against the glass and that was it. Like the homage to the Minoc, in the cave, and that was it. Fine. Yeah, like the liberal use of hyperspace.
It's actually the creature stuff too. I was going to mention it earlier, but it's actually kind of an homage to a deleted scene from Empire Strikes Back where like originally like there was more than one Wampa on Hoth, and they had like contained in an area, then they get loose and start like grabbing fucking snowtroopers and shit.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was I've seen that too, didn't they? Like they released it on something.
It came out in one of the Blu-rays, I think, or something.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I was wondering why, I guess like that doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, but I guess Luke getting captured by the Wampa in the first place shouldn't really have anything to do with the plot either, but I guess it's just another one of those little problems that the characters in the beginning and and stuff like that. But
a little test for him, that's how he was able
to. Yeah, actually, you know what? That I think set up the showing that he could get it with the Force. Then Obi-Wan came to him. Why did that never really got that? Like he always came to him. Like why wouldn't he be like, oh crap, Luke's he's in trouble. I'll be right back. And then like he goes and shows up to someone else like Luke, or whatever. But yeah, I guess, anyway, let's get back to the Force Awakens. So there are things that were just like, what? Like, why did they do that? I mean, like I said, like going into it, I figured it'd have its flaws, and like even those spoiler-free reviews, it was like, oh, hey, this movie's like any movie, it's got its flaws, but, hey, thank God, it's not a shitty Star Wars movie,
Right.
So...
Well, that's the difference between this and the prequels.
Yeah.
It's full of things that we've mentioned that are like, nitpicks and like things that are annoying or detract from the overall experience. But the difference is, in the end, it's still an enjoyable movie. Yeah, it was enjoyable. That's kind of like, I came away from it being relieved. Yeah. Like, oh, thank God, I can be excited about the next one, and not have to like stick my nose up at it. Right. Quit it, as we said. If Luke turned into be like, if like Luke was actually Kylo Ren, which they set that up too, like where she was like. I don't know, or no, Poe said that, didn't he? Where he was like, take off your mask, or Rey, or somebody did. It was Rey. Yeah, and the first time he took it off, like, okay, it is Adam Driver. He is Kylo Ren. Yeah. Said something like, it's hard not to be afraid or something from like when you're hunted by a creature in a mask or something like that. Yeah. So that's what he's like. All right, I'll take it off then. Yeah, I'm just like a normal dude. I got long hair. Han and Leia's kid. They recognize me from that. So I guess what things we liked? Yeah, what did you like about it? Like, what are specific little things that you liked? I mean, like the nostalgia stuff that they obviously like liberally peppered in throughout this movie. It worked on me. Like I sat there. There's at least 4 times where I got fucking teary. Yeah, like teary to the point where they actually started like coming down my face a little bit. I'm like, shit, nobody saw that. I would just like slowly reach up under my glasses. Well, the one part I got teary at was when Han and Leia like hugged finally, like they reconciled, and I was like, yes, finally. I don't know what that is. I did a lot, even like the new characters, which is a good sign to me because like. That's another thing too that I think is a positive. Like I didn't expect to like the new characters as much as I did. Yeah. Rey was really well. Like Daisy Ridley played that character amazing. Yeah. Like, and the thing is, like, that's her first major role, so that's like crazy. I know. Yeah. You don't even think of that. Like that's like you're looking at somebody in your mind who's just like an old pro or whatever. And, she was fantastic. Yeah, she was good. I mean, everybody was good. Funny thing, wife said. Star Wars has typically been a property where people liked the villains more, like outside of the movies. Like, when you buy like a shirt, I'm even wearing a Darth Vader sweatshirt. You're wearing a Darth Vader t-shirt. You know what I mean? The villains are typically more like people like them, and like Darth Vader was awesome because you find out eventually he's a flawed, or not like a flawed character, but he's a conflicted person. He's much more deep than just being an evil, mindless killer. Like he's an interesting character. And that's what, Boba Fett, like, never says a word but kicks ass and then, whatever. He's just this cool bounty hunter guy, But, like my wife said, in this case, like, I didn't really like the villains more than I liked the heroes. Like, the heroes were excellent in this movie, and the villains were kind of like, Well, I think a lot of that, like I said earlier, is to do with, one, like, the design, the look, the costuming of the villains. But also, number 2 is they're either not really fleshed out or already like made to seem weak,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Well, yeah, even like Captain Phasma, who wasn't really in it a lot, which is fine. Like you said before, that was probably more of a good thing, that she wasn't
I felt like
overdone,
it'd be easy to overuse that character.
Yeah,
It's like, ooh, a silver stormtrooper, cool.
Yeah, everybody's like scared of her and shit, and then like they just kind of like capture her at the end and make her put the shields down or whatever.
They just hold her fucking like a plain old blaster like in her back.
Yeah.
As if, I don't know, like shouldn't she be a little more like tough as an adversary?
I mean, I guess like if Chewie's standing there, you're like, oh shit, that's a Wookiee, and like I'm not in a position to kill him.
Fair enough. Then Han just kind of they just put the shields down and fucking he laughs her off and jokes about stuffing her in a garbage chute.
Yeah, and I guess that's where they put her.
I guess so.
And that was kind of funny. See, that's one of the things I like that they did. They did like out of their mouths mention things that happened in the original,
right?
Without full on saying, "Oh yeah, hey, remember that time we were on Hoth and it was really cold too? Oh man, that was crazy, Chewie. They had to kill that fucking probe droid." That would have been dumb,
right?
But when they just kind of offhand, like, "Oh, do you got any garbage chutes or trash compactors here?" And he's like, "Yeah, a trash compactor." Yeah,
I noticed
it almost kind of came off as a little like special needs for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not to be like insensitive, but
Leia had one of those moments too, where when they first like go to the base, Han said something about I was trying to be helpful, and she's like, "When did I ever help?" And then she said, "Don't stay at the Death Star."
Yeah, because that obviously, that was good. Yeah, like I like those little tiny like references, without being in your face and just like conversational, like a huge long conversation about it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like where it should be, because like it's almost like this new generation of characters and even fans and stuff like that. Like even my kids are going to be like they're like the prequel Clone Wars era type fans. They didn't really get, so to them like it's almost like the original trilogy is like almost a myth, and like you don't want it to be like in your face,
Right.
And so that's pretty cool, but. So yeah, you like the little references like that. Like what else? And like the new characters, they were great. Like even, I thought like Maz Kanata was like a acceptable character, I guess.
Especially of like the fully CGI elements in this movie. Yeah, she was definitely like the best one.
Yeah.
Still a little. For some reason, Star Wars, I don't know. I can't they basically invented like the technology for special effects and advancement, but they always have like weak CGI. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, she's probably executed the best, but still a little like visually rough. But character-wise, I'm totally fine with that character.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with Snoke, because it's Andy Serkis, and as you know, I mean, he's probably like the premier motion capture actor out there. I mean, he's from what he's done. I mean, famously Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and he did the Caesar ape in the Planet of the Apes. I mean, he's really good at what he does when it comes to. Of course, a lot of it's technology too. It's not just Andy Serkis, but he's the guy that does the voice, does the mannerisms, brings the character to life. I'm kind of curious as to what he's going to look like when he's actually doing something besides sitting down and talking to someone over a hologram, because his CGI has got to be decent. I mean, it usually is. Like the Gollum character was pretty believable in Lord of the Rings, and I mean, I never really watched the Planet of the Apes, but so I'm hopefully, I mean, we don't really know a lot about him, and we haven't really seen him full on. We've only seen like a blue version of him. So what does he look like? I've never seen the species before. He kind of looks like the Darth Plagueis species, but not really.
A little more humanoid than what that was shown to be. Almost like a human, like burn victim or something.
Yeah, like he's been effed up in some way.
Like a big scar in his mouth or something.
Yeah, so that's like one of the questions that we have going forward. There's tons of questions going forward.
So,
it's not fleshed out yet, but I mean, I thought like the new characters were believable, and I accepted them when I saw them and when they fit into the story. So that's a good sign too, because like when you see some shit like Jar Jar Binks,
right?
Like we said, we'll never know what his real purpose was going to be, because he could have been the puppet master. We don't know, but like and it's not just Jar Jar Binks. I mean, like they went like nuts with like weird new species and stuff in those movies, and you're just like, no, I don't like it. Like the Geonosians, like the bug flying things, I'm like, nope, not good. That was a bad choice. It just didn't really work for me, and that's just like one or two examples, but so that was definitely, I think that was probably one of the best things about it, was that we could accept the new characters and move forward, with that, and the obvious use of practical effects was better. Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they did. They go out, clearly went out of their way to build real sets and shoot on real locations. That's another thing about the technology, like used in the prequels, is it dates really fucking hard.
Yeah.
You go back and watch those. It's clear that they're not in a fucking real place
Yep.
half the time. You know,
It's a fucking green screen.
you can
know?
tell.
Yep.
And it's like, it just, I don't know, for me anyway, it pulls me out of it.
Oh, you know who else sucked in the prequel were the Trade Federation species,
Yeah.
the Neomoidians or whatever.
Which is ironic because they're one of the few that, like, it's clear that they were kind of a practical effect too. Like,
Yeah,
the rubber masks and shit.
Yeah, it was an actual mask, right? Yeah, and it was just terrible voice acting.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I mean, it was almost like they sounded like they were using bad like Asian accents. Like
Well, that movie was chock full of weird Asian or weird ethnic stereotype characters with Jar Jar's like
terrible.
Step and fetch it or whatever. Like, black, you know, basically a fucking slave sounding character.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know, between him and them with their stereotypical Asian
she will
things,
song the
the
tree.
or whatever.
Yeah, it was just like it was like the stereo. Like if someone was trying to do like an Asian, like they were making fun of like a Japanese movie, that's the accent they would use.
Exactly.
And like, so I just see George Lucas standing there going, okay, so you know if like you were going to talk to your friend and you were going to make fun of like some Japanese movie you watched, like how would you say it? You'd be like, oh, I'd say it like this.
Yeah.
He's like, use that voice, and you're like, that's fucking racist, dude. Like, what's your problem?
you know, miso salad. Like, how would you say that?
Yeah, how is it? Oh no, it's Godzilla. I'm like, what the fuck, you know? Like that was just terrible. But yeah, so you know, like these were characters that like they didn't, you know, like I guess, you know, like we said, we accepted them, you know, like I didn't.
Well, they were. I guess I can't. I don't know how to quite put it into words as to what the difference is, but.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to articulate.
I know that the actors did their part to make it, you know, to hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think that worked.
I'll tell you, you know, at first I didn't really have a strong liking to the Finn character. I think because he was a little duplicitous, you know, but eventually he kind of grew on me a little bit, so I kind of liked him.
Yeah, he took the longest for me too.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was like the crass, you know, cockiness that he had. Like it just didn't fit because like we already have Han Solo. Like you said, it's like if he just was kind of like if they kind of stuck to the baseline of him having like a attack of consciousness and wanted to leave because he knew they were doing bad things, he wanted to do good things, you know, and he was that was like his conviction and that's what he wanted to do. I mean, he could have just straight up said, you know, like, Rey, I'm a stormtrooper, but I'm defecting. I need to get out of here. You know, like it would have been better if he wasn't so kind of sneaky at first.
Yeah, it was a little weird. I don't know if that was like, I guess, what do you feel like the point of that was? Was it just thrown in there to throw us off, or? Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know what the point of that was.
Yeah.
That's like one of the things where I'm kind of like at a loss. Like, why did they do his character like that? Maybe, I mean, because like you even said, like, you know, who's captain now? You know, who's in charge now? When they captured Phasma, I was like, whoa, settle down there, cowboy. You know.
Well, Han even tells him that. But I mean, I guess I feel for him in that moment because like it's kind of like, she had her thumb down him the whole time, and he's finally getting to turn the tables.
Well, yeah, because she even.
But it was a little overacting, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, like I did eventually start to like him, but you're right. I think, you know, for me, he was the longest one to get it because like you see Poe Dameron, like, you know, he's a good guy right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know, he's talking. He wants to find Luke too, and he like really cares about his droid, and like, let's get out of here. Like, goes far away. You know, I mean, he was taking care of the situation. Like, he was in control, and like he was a good guy. You know?
I guess in fairness to Finn, Poe's acceptance is probably helped by the fact that like the first thing you see is him being trusted with this key piece.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And Finn's just kind of like, oh man, my friend just put a bloody handprint on my helmet, and I can't shoot these innocent people. Like, of course you can't, dummy. You know, like, but it seems like they're, you know, almost like there's some reason why he didn't take on to like the indoctrination that they did to him. You know, because even they
that is.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just while you're on that scene, it reminded me that is, I think I mentioned it before, but that is one of the things that still kind of is jarring to me was that it's a PG-13 Star Wars movie. I think the only other one that was besides this was Revenge of the Sith.
Yep, because that scene where he's going to kill the younglings, I think is what put that over to the PG-13.
This one, I don't know, in spots it was just like a little much with the violence.
Yeah, it was a little violent for a Star Wars movie, I thought. I mean, I get in episode 3 they have to kill the Jedi at some point, so we were expecting it. you didn't expect it in this. Like you thought, when I was surprised when I got the PG-13 rating too. Like I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be PG. I mean, it's not like a thing where we're like, oh, we can't take the kids now or something. But yeah, I was surprised, why, and now we know why it got the PG-13.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty violent, even like right off the bat, like he sliced that dude up, right in the beginning, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, for some reason...
in the blood, too. That was weird.
Yeah, that's Uncle Matt made a point about that, too. He's like, you don't really see Stormtroopers getting bloody in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And they do in this.
Yeah. They do. Kylo Ren gets bloody, too. He gets shot right in the stomach.
Yeah. I think for some reason, even though it wasn't necessarily like a depiction of actual violence, the part that really bothered me was in that scene in the beginning when they're, well, I mean, basically, it's they're fucking storming a village like Viking style and burning everything to the ground.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's always implied they do that, but it's never really like full on shown.
Yeah, they razed the city. Like that thing was done.
But like, there was this one scene where they showed one of like the alien creatures like being like basically held by troopers and about to be like shot to death or whatever. And just the look on his face. I think it was total CGI, but that one like got me because like it just looked horrible. Like he was like basically like struggling silently screaming against it. It was like, oh man, it's gonna haunt my nightmares.
Yeah, I was surprised that that little X-wing pilot that he gave the homage to the Beastie Boys. Remember you saw that where they named him like Elo Asti or something, so it was like Asti without. And also it's supposedly an homage to Lost too, because if you spell it out, it's like L-O-S-T, like L-O-S-T. So that was like their little, like I guess like the creature department did that or whatever. But I was surprised that guy died because that was like his little homage to the other things he liked, but then he died, and I was like, oh well, that sucks because he spoke English too, which is weird.
Yeah.
Nia Num made a little comeback. He's an X-wing pilot now, and Admiral Akbar is about 5 seconds from death.
Yeah.
I mean that guy's old now, but well, you never know because like the Mon Calamari, they're an alien species, so it's like I'm glad that he was in it too because it kind of was like, oh, so these people that were in the rebellion are helping the resistance now. So so we got
to see some of that.
Yeah, like you said, the nostalgic factor was definitely there, and I think that's what kind of endears the fans right now is that like it wasn't a bad movie. It was entertaining, and it had the nostalgic factor, and we liked the new characters. Like the four main elements are there. If I don't really know how many main elements are supposed to be, but to me, those four at
least are there.
And, and really, the things we didn't like were just kind of nitpicky. I mean, not some of it was nitpicky. Some of it was kind of a problem. Like some plot details might have been a little weird.
Right.
And, I think it was just too much like of a remake, not really like a new movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think kind of toned it down a little bit for me. It's like, well, we've already seen this sort of.
I mean, overall, I guess they hedged their bets, and I guess hopefully, and the intent is that more of the creative freedom comes in the next two movies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 2 new directors too coming up. So,
Yeah.
well, now we got to look forward. It's kind of cool because we can look forward to a movie every year now. Even though if it's not an episodic, episode, we're gonna get the anthology next Christmas with Rogue One, and that's a cool part of the. I'm kind of glad they picked that. Is like their story. That's something that's neat. Like we never really know how they got the Death Star plans. Like how did they get them? Like she's just running away with them to start off. So. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I can catch up on a lot of these novels too. Now apparently a lot of these things had like Easter eggs for the new movie, but like I didn't really. I mean, I guess the Aftermath had a lot. Like they showed like the precursors of the Knights of Ren and stuff like that. So I don't know what these Easter eggs ended up being, but here we are. Just got to read more books too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just stick to like message boards and shit.
Yeah, that's how they get you. That's how they get you with the marketing. They're like, buy these books too.
So I guess we're probably winding it down.
Yeah, those were our thoughts. I mean, we have a lot of unanswered questions going forward. Like who are the Knights of Ren? What's the role of the Republic, and how are they related to the Resistance? How big is the First Order? Because now their base is blown up. How many of them got away?
Right.
Are there pockets of First Order in other places in the universe or the galaxy? We don't know. What's Luke gonna do? He didn't even say a word. I was like, come on, man. But
he's gonna put the hood back up and go, no thanks, and then just fucking vanish into the sky.
Yeah, he's like, here's a book that I wrote about the Force, and I'm gonna commit ritual suicide. Samurai. Oh shit, I did the crappy Asian accent. I'm sorry. Ugh, man, terrible. So
This is what $6 million looks like, bitches.
yeah, how much do you think he got paid for the 30 seconds he was in the movie? Man.
I bet it's a good chunk.
See, yeah, there's a reason why we're not showing Luke. Yeah, 'cause he's not in the fucking movie. That's why you didn't show him, you know.
And the movie cost $200 million to make.
Yeah, that's got to be like special effects or something, man. I don't know. Like those
Well, I'm
budgets
sure-
are too high.
I'm sure a lot of it is, the big name salaries. I'm sure Harrison Ford was a
He
pretty
probably
big
got,
chunk.
20 mil,
Yeah,
you know?
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then obviously building all the real sets and whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it's huge. Like it's fucking Star Wars.
Well, I'm sure it's made that back already. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, they
There's
said
no question.
They said it's got to make like $1.5 billion to be successful, quote unquote, because like just like how much they
Between
paid
all-
for the
yeah.
property and
Way it's
all the
divided
marketing they
up and
paid
shit,
for, yeah, and it's like, I mean, yeah, you can make like a, if you're, well, it was 200 million like production and marketing and all that stuff too, or was that just production?
I actually don't know. I want to say it's production only.
Because I'm assuming it's probably double that with marketing.
Somebody said, I don't know how true this is. I saw it somewhere that Disney only put like 27 million into marketing.
Oh, really?
Well, just Disney's marketing of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gonna run a trailer on a station you own, are you really paying for it?
Right.
No.
Right, it's running shit on ESPN all the time.
Yeah,
and they own
ESPN,
it, so-
ABC Family, whatever.
Exactly.
Because those are the two big Disney, right?
And the Disney Channel too.
Yeah,
A bunch of
obviously,
specials
besides-
about it. Yeah.
Besides the Disney Channel, yeah, that's obvious. But yeah, so I think overall, I mean, I'm going to watch it again, so I'm sure I'll have more opinions after we watch
Yeah.
it again if you end up doing it too.
And that's the thing too. Like a lot of the stuff I was reading online from people talking about it, like they're already like, yeah, I saw it twice, and the second time I noticed this, and it's like,
Yeah.
shit, it's been out fully for 24 hours, and you already seen it twice.
I know, right? I'm not even going to see it till next weekend too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to have like a week break between showings to go back in fresh. I mean, it's going to be like seeing it for the first time again, which is exciting in itself. Because like we basically were able to recall the plot, but give a week from now and be like, crap, what part is that?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So it'll be cool, and it'll be good to experience it with someone who hasn't seen it yet too. So. All right, well, we'll wrap that up then, I guess. That's our review / discussion about Force Awakens. I'm sure we'll talk about more stuff, and Star Wars is back, basically, so there's gonna be stuff coming out for years now, so that'll probably be one of our topics we hit on every now and then,
I guess ultimately, what's the verdict in terms of was it worth? Did it justify the wait, in your opinion?
Barely.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
It barely justified. Because, I mean, honestly, like, there were months there where I'm like, I didn't really think about it, like, when the first teaser came out, I wasn't really psyched until, like, the actual second fuller-length teaser came out. So you're looking at about a year. No, I mean, that was, like, when did that come out? That came out, I think, around, like, April, didn't it? So at that point, we were only, like, 7 or 8 months away. So at that point, I was like really excited, but there were still like those months in there where I wasn't really thinking about it until it got closer and closer.
Right.
So I would say, based on my anticipation for the last couple of days, I'm like relieved that I finally have seen it, and I think it barely justified it. I think in my mind, like you said, because you said you give it about 6.5, 7 out of 10. Mine's probably like an 8 out of 10. So
yeah, I would say I'm at barely too.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and yeah, between my 6.5 and your 8, so it probably falls at about a 7.
Yeah.
Which is it's solid.
Yeah, it's solid. I mean, it's not the greatest thing you're ever going to see.
Right.
And like, it's never going to be better than the originals, but it's definitely worthy of, I think, carrying the torch from the originals. And yeah, it's good. I would definitely probably, if I had the money, I'd probably see it 3 times, 4 times before it left the theater. But well, now in this day and age, you don't have to wait a year for the VHS tape to come out. We'll get a Blu-ray probably by May.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to buy it. I can watch it whenever I want to. But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they release it.
Yep. Oh, man.
Well, that said, here's your long-awaited analysis of Star Wars Episode 7.
Woohoo! We saw it finally, yay! Now I can die happy, sort of. I want to see how it ends now, crap.
Wait for the other 2.
Stay alive for 5 years. Okay, bye.